I'm still waiting for it to put one on the board.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Perfect Strangers theme song about to pop in. Yes, Perfect Strangers, last week of June, and a lot of football to discuss. Bill, the last question I believe I asked you as we ended last week, big weekend of recruiting for Shane Beamer. Did we expect any commitments? And apparently, we should have maybe even expected more. 8 commitments in 8 days, I think, by my math and reading. That sound right to you?
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm right now still kind of confused on who's committed, who isn't committed. What was there was I don't know, like 3 or 4 as we hit Friday, but most of them had not gone public. And then I guess over the weekend, maybe 2 of those went public, and then you picked up another commitment from Anthony Rose, who recommitted. Yeah, I'm a little right now trying to do math on all the welcome homes and how they match up with the guys actually committed. I feel like was it Charlie Murphy? I think it was in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the board up and he's trying to figure something out. Everything, he's got all the string connected, and you're going, all right, which guy is connected to which tweet and so forth and so on. But the bottom line
Wait a
is,
second.
Yeah, Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy was in something other than
What's his name?
the Dave Chappelle show?
It's Charlie Day. Charlie Murphy's Eddie Murphy's brother.
Yeah, no,
All right,
I know
just-
Charlie Murphy. I actually watched like a week and a half ago. I actually rewatched Charlie Murphy's Hollywood Stories, but for some reason I thought there were two. Charlie Day. Anyway,
So confused there.
I haven't seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia in a long time.
I think it's easy to get confused. It's a little difficult to keep it straight. Fortunately, we got guys like over at Gamecock Central, Wes Mitchell and Chris Clark, and that's where I've been trying to keep all this straight for sure, because it was 12 guys set to visit this weekend, and then there were some. I guess that's the difference these days, right, Bill? Not only are there some unofficial commitments out there, verbal commitments, but some of them are commitments and the details aren't even known. Like that happened, I guess, last Wednesday a couple of times, that Shane Beamer throws out the tweet of welcome home, but then you don't get the details. Well, Friday, right after our show, you got the first detail, you got the first name attached to another welcome home tweet, I think, an in-state receiver from 8-man Clarendon Hall down in Somerton and Kyla Horton. And then later on Friday, it was an offensive lineman from Georgia and Casey Henry. And then it was the transfer from Kansas on Saturday, who won't be part of the class of 2022. He is ready to play basically today, as I understand it. And that's the All-American defensive back from Kansas in Karan Prunty, I think, which is probably the biggest piece to all this, knowing where the secondary finished last year and having to make up for Horn and McQuamu and the exits of Jamie Robinson, also Johnny Dixon transferring out, and the whole deal. So that's where I come up with the number of 8 commits in 8 days when you add in Anthony Rose just from yesterday. Like you said, he had verbally committed to Shane Beamer, then decommitted, and apparently it was getting his grandfather to sign off, and they came this weekend, and his grandfather got the ultimate word that said that Anthony Rose will be a Gamecock. That's how I understand it. That sound about right to you?
Yeah, no, you do, just because of the numbers and how they work. I agree with you. Karan Prunty is a guy who you don't necessarily count as part of the 22 class, but he does count for the numbers
Officially.
2022. Yeah, so that's one less spot that South Carolina will be able to use on what would be a 2022 commitment. So you do count him, I guess, in a way, but you are right. He's an immediate impact guy. because of the eligibility of everybody being kept. He still has 4 years or 5 years to play four, I guess is how you would say it. So even though he has played one college season, still has all his eligibility left. So, okay, there's that. And for a secondary that needed to be revamped, now you bring in him, you bring in David Spalding, who was already here during the spring. Carlins Patel will be here coming up. Tyrese Ross is another guy that they brought in through the transfer portal. So a couple guys there. I feel like I'm leaving one more out somewhere in here that they brought in defensive back wise out of the transfer portal. Isaac Norris and Marcellus Dow, two junior college guys that signed last year. So they have gone out and at least added bodies, if nothing else. We'll see how good the bodies are, how good these players are when we get actually into the season. But if anything else, they now at least have added some depth to the secondary, given O'Donnell Fortune, Cam Smith, Dominic Hall, Joey Hunter are still there. R.J. Roderick is still there. You've added LaDarian LeBrian Craig out of Alabama. So they've added people to the secondary. Again, I no clue how good these guys will be. And unfortunately, given South Carolina's track record of transfers from other programs coming in, not being that stellar, JT eBay, Nick Williams standing out among those two. We'll see how the transfers go, but at least Torian Gray will now have some players, some actual guys that he can put back there and create competition and try and figure out a 5-man secondary.
I tweeted it out yesterday after Rose made his commitment that 8 commitments in 8 days. I'm not huge on recruiting, but it seems like positive momentum that the Gamecock football program needs, and the reason that Shane Beamer got hired. Patrick, what do you make of all the movement here in the last few days?
It's exciting. I am still prepared to be Mr. Negative if everyone, because I was expecting it to come in today and everyone's like, we're winning the national championship. We just got 8 commitments in 1 weekend. It's over. Like, you guys are done. Watch out, SEC. But yeah, you have 1 4-star in your class. Like, you're 31st in the country, and just looking at like the average, average ranking, like South Carolina is at 87.36, and most teams in front of them, or at least in like the 5 to 10 spots in front of them, are in the 86 or 87 range. But then you get up and people are in like the mid 90s ahead of you. So they're good players. But as Bill's been saying for weeks, it's going to be about development, and you can't just say these guys are going to be great. I think Prunty is by far the most exciting, because we've been saying for a while, or I have, that I think the defensive line is going to be good. You've got guys at linebacker, but I don't know what that's really going to look like. The secondary is for sure the biggest area of concern for me on the defense. And you got a kid who's a freshman All-American, and granted, I think they only played 9 games, but when you're a freshman All-American, that means something. Someone's giving you credit for your ability. So I think he'll come in right away. I don't know when he'll officially be on campus and ready to go, but he's going to come in right away and contribute. I couldn't name you 2 of the 5 guys that are going to play in the secondary right now. So I would expect him to play right away, and that's definitely the one thing that gets me excited for the weekend.
Some of the numbers that I saw, and again, going through Gamecock Central on this, I think they got these from Pro Football Focus, that when Prunty was on the field for Kansas as a freshman corner last year, didn't allow a touchdown in 525 snaps. Quarterbacks completing just a little less than 39% of the passes thrown towards him, and that was best among all freshmen, 7th in the country, and also allowed a total of just 52 yards after the catch, which I guess when breaking this down to all corners in the country, defensive backs was 28th singularly in the country, and immediately eligible. Going to be on campus very soon, if not enrolled within the next couple of 24 hours, 48 hours. I think first Monday in July, a week from today, was the word I saw there from, again, Gamecock Central about Karan Prunty, the defensive back corner from Kansas. And Bill, would you agree with Patrick on that one? Out of all the news from the weekend, the 4 commits, basically 2 on Friday, it was him on Saturday, and then Anthony Rose back in the fold on Sunday. To me, I agree, because not only did you get a freshman All-American at a position of need, but you also singularly beat Tennessee, it came down to Tennessee or South Carolina, and Prunty chooses the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to beat Tennessee, but Tennessee is Tennessee only in name right now. That program. Did you guys see how many people have transferred out from them? They had another 2 transfers, I think, and it was at least another one, maybe 2 over the weekend. Tim, have you seen?
Yeah, but it's better than beating out Georgia Southern for a kid.
It's true about that. I'm not arguing with that, but I mean, if you guys
but think about the opposite. I'm not trying to tell you that Tennessee's going to be great, but if you're a first-year head coach and first-year staff and you're selling positive momentum, enthusiasm, and selling facilities, and then Josh Heupel pulls a guy that you desperately need as well, then it's a bit of a problem, I think. But no,
I mean, it definitely is a player that moves you ahead of Tennessee. You look at Tennessee right now; 40 guys have transferred out of that program or just been dismissed.
40?
Yeah.
And how long?
January.
January?
I think it's graduated, left, transferred, or been dismissed. I think it's 40. Like that roster has completely.
That was a bit distorted there, Bill. See how many guys have transferred out.
Not many guys graduated, Tim. Not many guys graduated. There was a lot of people.
Can we take the graduates? I would like to know what it is if we get the graduates out of there, or guys that just.
I can get you on that here in just a minute, but it's incredible what's going on there. But no, I mean, look, you can't. You're right. You can't go over the top and say that this is incredible recruiting, but you also have to be realistic that this is a pretty solid job by South Carolina right now to get out with a first year staff, being able to get what looks like some quality players committed. I mean, look at Auburn. You guys know how many commitments Auburn has right now with the first year staff?
Oh, Bill.
You want to guess?
Just full of questions with numbers this morning. I love it. Well, I would never would have gone 40 on that end. I'm guessing you're going on the other end here. I'll go 5.
Patrick, you want to take a ballpark guess?
For Auburn commits, 2.
3. They're dead last in the SEC. Auburn, who is known for Auburn's always been a good recruiting school. Doesn't matter who's the coach there. And they've got just 3 commitments right now. And so that's kind of crazy to look at when you talk about them. I think trying to rebuild a little bit, but what you're seeing from Brian Parsons, the coach down there, Mike Bobo. It's funny, I went just kind of scrolling around yesterday because that caught my attention. I was thinking, I wonder what the Auburn fans think about this right now. Man, Auburn fans right now are not happy with that coaching staff and with what they're doing. They are dead last in the SEC right now and sitting there with 3 commitments as we get ready to flip the page to July. So again, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Patrick. You don't jump up and start chanting, SEC East or national championship, but you do, I think, get a little happier with just how things have been able to develop under this first year staff. They need to win some football games to continue to show that they can be competitive in the SEC. They need to develop some guys that are landing here to show that the staff is what they tell everybody. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but certainly not something that you get upset about. And we'll see kind of how it continues to play out as they had several bigger names. Oscar Delp standing out. Again, Ryan Brubaker, the offensive lineman who's between South Carolina and Penn State, essentially will make a commitment. Dominic James out of IMG's a 4-star defensive lineman, will make a commitment this Saturday. So there are some bigger names that they've put themselves in a little bit of position with. We'll see if they're able to land or close on those guys and then keep them committed.
Yeah, because that'll make me more excited. Wasn't it like end of summer last year where Tennessee had like 23 commits or something, and everyone was going crazy in Knoxville, and we were making fun of them? Like, yeah, sweet, you got 23 stars, congratulations, but nothing to write home about. Like, I just don't want to be exactly that what we made fun of with Tennessee last year because their coach was fired 3 months ago.
Yeah, you got to land some difference makers. We've talked about that. You've got to be able to sprinkle in some difference makers with the class, and we'll see again if they're able to actually do that.
So the first 4-star guy officially, I guess, part of this class is Anthony Rose from yesterday, defensive back from down in Miami, projected play safety, was verbally committed, ended up decommitting. And again, the story I'm getting from Gamecock Central is that they just needed to get his grandfather on board. They came up and visited, and he basically gave his blessing to Shane Beamer. for Anthony Rose to be a Gamecock moving forward. There were, I think, a total of 6 DBs on campus of the 12 over the weekend, and we'll see what other impact that might have had. Braden Davis, the quarterback commit from Delaware, also on campus, and as the story goes, kind of leading the recruiting effort from the players' side of things. Bill, you mentioned Ryan Brubaker as another possible offensive lineman. Apparently, amongst the intra recruiting, I'll call it, amongst offensive linemen had an impact on the other offensive line commit they did get over the weekend. Kason Henry, apparently now pretty good buddies with a guy who plays high school ball right near him down in Marietta, Georgia, and Grayson Maines. And they're pretty vocal on social media trying to get Brubaker to join the group. And seems like things are going pretty well on the offensive line standpoint. From there, you mentioned Oscar Delp as a tight end prospect and one of the best in the country. I think number 2 or number 3 from that position. And then overall, somewhere in the 50s overall players, and a 4-star guy. Other 4-star guys visiting this weekend as well, not part of the 8 commitments in 8 days for Gamecock football. But for me, I always try to see the forest through the trees in recruiting, and the positive momentum at this time. And as I understand it, Bill, the reason that this weekend was as important as it was is there's about to be a dead period here. Camps have kind of wrapped up in this chaotic, as busy as we've ever seen June for football recruiting, and to get the positive momentum out of this weekend, I think will help continue to have some buzz around Gamecock football in the coming dead period, which is important for a first-year staff like Shane Beamer, especially for Beamer being a first-year head coach and trying to get out there and I think establish himself in the Gamecock football program, maybe reestablish the Gamecock football program at the same time.
I mean, you've got to take baby steps, and part of it is, as you just pointed out, getting through the last month of June and being able to get some players committed, and you got to hold on to them. Now it's kind of turning the page. July, at the end of July, you're right, is when the dead period will let up. You'll have a cookout, kind of just a recruiting event that won't involve camps or anything at the end of the month, July 31st, and then you go into fall camp. I mean, it's crazy as we sit here today. I'll grab my calendar here, Tim. Are we 3 weeks away, or is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from SEC Media Day? And you'll
3 weeks from today.
3 weeks from today, Shane Beamer will actually take the podium. He'll be a Monday guy at SEC Media Day. He'll make his first appearance to that. You'll wrap up the month of July with some actual recruiting events, not camps, but actual recruiting events. And man, what do you think, Tim? You'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, roughly 5 weeks from about today, somewhere in that ballpark, will be camp opening across college football season. August 2nd is what I'm sitting here looking at, is a Monday. 5 weeks, roughly in the ballpark of 5 weeks from today, college football will start preseason camp and get going.
803-404-6100 is the number if you would like to weigh in on the program. Michael hits us up on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, says one word: golf. Oh, I hope you guys caught that yesterday. That was epic, man. Tanner English going head-to-head with a guy I'd never even heard of until this weekend in Kramer Hickok. 8-hole playoff there up in Hartford, and English ends up winning it with a birdie putt on the 8th hole. They go back and forth and back and forth. Bill, what'd you think of that thing?
I have to admit, man, I was pulling for I was pulling for Kramer Hickok. Is it Hickok? When his family's, I mean, basically hiding behind hiding behind the stands because they flew in and they wanted to surprise him, and they kind of felt bad for him. He got married in December, I believe what it was, and his wife was a golfer in Texas, was there, but it was fun to watch, man. Some of the putts and some of the shots, some of the positions they kept putting themselves in. I ended up not watching all of it. I think after the 5th one, I was like, man, I'm going out on the boat for a little while. I'm going to go catch the sunset and the birds. It was 2 names. It was fun to watch, but I'd have rather gone and caught the sunset, cruised around on Lake Murray on the boat, and called it a day. But Yeah, that was fun to watch, and sadly, Tim, we talked about like great finishes, great. Like last week what was the order? You had Vanderbilt and Stanford, I think, and you flipped over and it was like Bucks, Hawks, I think, at night, and then you flipped over and you had the hockey game. I don't for the life of me understand NASCAR. I watched it. Hamlin yesterday was second, and apparently with 2 laps to go, thought he was going to run out of gas and just decides now's the time to pit stop. So,
Fuel strategies.
dude, that was
Sometimes
actually
work, sometimes they
Jen. It was actually crazy. I got heavily invested because I had Hamlin. I had so many snarky, smart tweets that I was so ready to put out.
It's too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched the race yesterday too.
What was that?
This weekend I watched all 10 episodes of the first season of Formula One Drive to Survive on Netflix, and that show is unreal. And I woke up at 9 a.m. to watch the F1 race yesterday, which Max Verstappen just absolutely dominated. But that show is amazing. If anyone hasn't seen that show, it's so worth it. It's so good. I'm gonna watch the second season this week. Like, it's awesome.
Name of the show one more time.
Formula One Drive to Survive. It's just a documentary following the F1 circuit, and it starts in season 1 takes place in 2018, and there's 3 seasons out now, 10 episodes each. It's amazing.
Apparently, after 1 week of filling in for Jen Jensen, somehow racing seeped into his pores, and apparently now he's a race guy.
That would be the most expensive of all of the race series.
Oh yeah. I think the budgets for the top teams are like $400 million a year.
It's insane. Yeah.
Wow. And massive news at the College World Series. NC State disqualified late, what was that, Friday night, I guess at 2 a.m. our time, after having only 13 players eligible to play that Friday game, almost coming up with an epic upset of Vandy, which I guess would have meant that we would already have a national champion today, as I understand it. And a lot of different things going into this decision. That discussion will be a very interesting one that we have today ahead of tonight's Vandy Mississippi State College World Series game number 1 of the best of 3 series, an all SEC final series. And Jim over in Carolina Beach, Clemson fan who was touting the ACC and really pulling hard for NC State, and Virginia out in Omaha says congratulations to the SEC for 2 teams in the finals. The College World Series would have been more interesting to watch if it was the SEC versus ACC. More people would watch. Football season's only 2 months away. Go Clemson Tigers. Interesting take on that.
I can get on board with Jim. I don't mind Jim. Jim's fine. Ray's the annoying one. Jim's fine.
Bill's getting under Bill's skin this morning already.
Not under my skin.
That's how we know we're starting on Monday.
I could watch a football game with Jim. I could get on board with that. A lot of Lexington connections there.
Misspoke and said Tanner English instead of Harris English.
That would actually be impressive.
Baseball player, yeah. I mean, he can do backflips. We know that. And I'm sure he's probably a good golfer, but not quite as good as Harris English was yesterday in the epic. Again, that was the longest sudden death playoff since 2012, tied for the second longest ever on the PGA Tour. I think you got to go back to the 1940s. There was an 11-hole playoff, like in the 40s, I think was the graphic that popped up yesterday. Plenty to discuss this morning. I guess we could get into NBA and NHL playoffs as well, but the big recruiting weekend for Gamecock football with 8 commitments in 8 days, College World Series controversy probably will lead the way, but who knows? I didn't expect Patrick to admit to being an F1 racing fan in the first segment, so you never know what's going to happen.
When do we tell Jen about our conversation last week?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't get to be involved.
You missed a lot last week, Jen. We'll try to catch you up.
You're not going to be happy with us over one of the conversations we had that didn't involve
Which
you.
one? There's a few.
There's a big one. There's one big one.
Tractors?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about tractors. I mean, Lamborghinis came up, had no idea. It's a tractor company. Who knew? Who knew? I guess an F1 guy would know.
Exactly.
Lamborghini doesn't have an F1 team. Ferrari does.
No.
Ferrari.
Great to know.
It was Ferrari, Mercedes.
A wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, Mercedes is Red Bull's the best right now. Red Bull's having a great year.
But that's not a car. It's not a car company.
No, they're not all car companies.
It's just like another one.
Technically, I think it's Red Bull Honda. Used to be Red Bull Aston Martin, but now Aston Martin's got their own team.
So one weekend, and now Patrick's an F1 expert.
Yep.
That's when you know you got a fine show. 803-404-6100 again is the number. You can call us on the Love Chevy phone lines or text us on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Same number there. Good to see DC, Carlton, Sonny, Jan, and Craig all up with us on the video stream, Facebook, YouTube Live, also on Twitter at 1075. The Game is the station handle where you can find us there. You're listening to the early game.
1075 The Game. The game is on the air, online, on your phone, on Alexa, Siri, in your gym line.
Okay, that was an easy hour. Let me get some coffee. I didn't get some before we started.
How did you come to the F1 show is my question.
Well, it's huge. The show's really, really big. Lots of people watch it. My roommates watch it. My dad loves it. It's one of Netflix's more successful shows. So I knew about it. I was watching other things and never took the time to fully dive into it.
I think Bill Burr got it to F1 as well. It's the only person I've ever heard talk about it like this.
I mean, it's really cool. Rich people are into F1 in general.
Right. Like, not just wealthy people are into F1.
Yeah. That's what I do. I know a little bit of it, and I'll kind of follow a little bit, and I do enjoy turn on the Monaco race, a couple like that. But I'm not as deep into it.
That's why I like it.
What's the difference between F1 and IndyCar?
It has to do with the cars. Even though they look the same, they are built a little bit differently. It's all road circuits. Now, Patrick, you might have more information on F1.
I tried to research it, and there's a lot of things about the cars that I don't understand. Do they refuel in Indy?
Do they refuel?
Yeah. They do not refuel in F1.
Yeah, okay.
The pit stops are like 2 seconds. All they do is switch tires. And they're in and out. It's pretty sweet to watch them pit for 2 seconds and get their tires switched.
Yeah. Yeah, and IndyCar, they pit, and it's, 7 seconds or something, and then you have NASCAR where it's, 12, 13 seconds. But, it's because basically with an open wheel car, they just, from the center, just go, they don't, it's not two sides.
When in F1, there's only 10 teams, and there's 2 drivers per team. So it's very interesting. Mercedes has two drivers, Ferrari has 2 drivers, and the drivers are teammates, but they actually don't like each other at all because that's their number one competitor, because it's the only person you have a direct competition with because you're driving the same car. So which driver is better by which driver drives that car better. Mercedes and Red Bull and Ferrari and McLaren are always the best because they just have better cars, and you have no hope if you don't have a better car.
McLaren's been just a powerhouse.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton's the one
He's a
that's
beast.
the richest athlete in the world, and he drives for Mercedes.
Yep.
But he's not in the show. He didn't want to be in the show.
Because he was dating a Kardashian at one time, so I can see that.
Oh, was he? That's not
I think he
surprising.
was one of the younger ones.
Jan, thanks for the heads up on that one. Greg didn't like the way that Harris English chewed his gum. Did have a little bit of a Lane Kiffin vibe, I think, going down yesterday. That's what he reminded me of. Well, what's the Punisher? That Marvel thing?
Yeah, the Punisher's sort of a superhero. There were 2 Punisher movies maybe 10 to 15 years ago, but I've heard the Netflix Punisher show is good. The guy that plays the Punisher is one of those actors who you'd for sure recognize but don't know his name.
Well, he's the dude that played Mickey Mantle, I think, in '61. At least the movie guy was. I know there's a movie. I forget that dude's
John
name.
Bernthal. He's the guy that played the campaign manager in the movie The Campaign. That's what I associate him with.
That's on Netflix, or is that a?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Morning, Anthony.
Oh, you're talking about Thomas Jane played him in. You're talking about the movie the movie Punisher. Yeah.
Thomas Jane's who I'm talking about. Yeah. John
Bernthal, yeah.
Yusuf. That's the TV show actor.
That's the TV show guy, yeah. I last saw him in, I think, The Accountant. He's in The Accountant with Ben Affleck. He plays Ben Affleck's brother.
Random text. What about the dirt track racing on Saturday night?
Oh, right. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Oh, I had no idea I don't even know what it was.
The SRX Racing Series, that six race series with Tony Stewart and Bill Elliott. Oh,
I saw you tweeted about that at some point.
it was so much fun.
And then how about this one? Random question this morning. It's been on my mind. How is pitch framing not cheating? Please explain. Yeah. Thank you.
Is that a Tom? Do we need to get Tommy Moody on the line to get that answered? Like,
probably. All right, heading back in. Okay, sir.
Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. Not shocking that it comes down to these two programs for a national championship. It starts tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll have it for you starting at 6:45 here on 107.5 The Game the next couple of nights, and Wednesday, if necessary, as well. Have the play-by-play here for you. But the story of the weekend wasn't that there was another epic comeback from Mississippi State against Texas. Wasn't that Kumar Rocker threw well against NC State to keep Vandy alive. It was the fact that we only got one game on Saturday instead of two, because NC State was disqualified after positive tests popped up on Friday, I guess it was. And then that delayed Friday's game originally. They ended up only having 13 players available. I think it was 5 players started at a position they had not started at during the season. And they battled. They were right there. Well, they had their starting pitcher play first base, go 3 for 4. Hadn't had an at-bat all season long. It was the epic David versus Goliath story there, pulling hard for NC State. And then the news coming down late Friday night after a couple of more players tested positive for COVID that NC State is disqualified. Their season is over. And it was a weird scene. I guess after they found out the news, the few players that would have been eligible to play, I guess, or not immediately in quarantine, go over to TD Ameritrade and take a picture, and in the middle of the night on the field, like as they're on their way off from disqualification. It's a brutal situation. I have a texter here. Clemson Allen says NC State will be College World Series champs in my mind. I know this conversation can go off in a lot of different ways. It seemed to be a nearly impossible situation for the NCAA, but couldn't something have been done to keep NC State playing baseball and allow them to play out just it? They only had one more game. If they would have lost it, they would have been disqualified. They also only had one more game, one more win away from a national championship series. This is not the first time we've seen it, right? VCU basketball didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament this past year because of COVID issues. They never got to play at all. I think there have been a couple of other teams on lower profile sports, maybe a hockey team or two that didn't get to play and their season ended because of this. But we've never seen it quite like this, Bill. And just, I think, so frustrating, again, from the smaller sports perspective in this larger pandemic discussion. But just, I can't help but have the feeling that something could have been tweaked or pushed back or the schedule adjusted. Couldn't something have been done, I guess is my ultimate question, to allow NC State to finish out playing at the College World Series? What were your thoughts when you heard the news and as we sit here today?
I still haven't figured out what exactly NC State had. Was there, say, 10 players that tested positive? Was there too many that were in contact tracing? The only thing that I read was, and they basically, the NCAA and the committee regret that the NCAA student athletes and coaching staff will not be able to continue in the championship in which they earned the right to participate per a statement from the NCAA. It says, because of privacy issues, we cannot provide further details. I guess we don't deserve to know those. I guess I don't know. This is a fine line with HIPAA and how I guess things should be played out, because I'm kind of with you. Like, could they not have waited one more day? Could you not have waited until yesterday and played a noon game? You know, was there a timeline? Are players? I guess now what you're telling me is they're all quarantined in Omaha, Nebraska for 10 days, 14 days,
No,
whatever it is.
they're already back in Raleigh. There were two separate flights. There were those that had tested positive, were quarantined on one flight, one private flight, I guess, back to Raleigh, and I retweeted it that they were met. Those that were not part of that group, but would have been eligible to play. Those few were met by NC State fans at their baseball field, and it was quite the pep rally and show of appreciation there for those guys. So they're back in Raleigh.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm just saying that's kind of my point. And also, it says that the decision came based on the recommendation of the championship medical team and the Douglas County Health Department. To me, it's a thing where, again, I guess because of HIPAA law, we're not going to get the full details of, was there a bunch of players sick? Was it all contact tracing? Was, could have they fielded? Again, the watching a little bit on Friday, obviously they were undermanned. I'm trying to remind me again. It was the first baseman, I believe, was usually a pitcher.
Yep.
The shortstop was usually the third baseman. The third baseman was a guy who never had played much this year. Like, I get it that they were severely undermanned. Was all the guys that took the field completely out? Again, it's one of those things. I'm with you. How could you not look to see if there was a way? I don't know if the NCAA couldn't push it back, say, starting the championship series on Tuesday, make it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I was trying to think over the weekend, Tim. The year that I started with 107.5 The Game was when Coastal Carolina won the national championship. And if you remember that year, there were a ton of rain delays. And it was one of the first shows I started in late June. It was one of the first shows that I did before you and I started. I was in with Jay Phillips, I believe, and we were watching the Coastal Carolina national championship game on television.
That was weird.
Last name. It's not some retreads. A bunch of guys that I think are ready to we can do some special things with.
New attitude.
I do believe that.
World didn't like that gas baggy hot
Okay.
take.
Actually, it's Patrick.
It's
Patrick. Here, just a minute.
So just disconnect and reconnect there, Patrick. Why don't we try that?
whoa.
That was crazy.
Did I miss something, or did everybody catch that? And
That really hurt my ears. Yeah.
Just a weird noise there, right?
was my take that bad that even the radio decided it needed to be cut off?
Yeah.
Well, why did that continue? I turned off my volume and both the outputs in my headset, and it was still doing that.
Weird. But Jen, we'll just have Patrick disconnect and reconnect. Makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
I just turned the whole thing off.
That was, and I wasn't sure whether
Still
to
doing
go
it.
one to the other, so I just thought I'll just drop it.
It's still doing it, Patrick?
It's doing it, and all my things are down.
And yet it's not coming through at all on the pod.
It's the bottom plug of the headset.
Yeah, that was
I'm not even
crazy.
connected to anything, and it did that.
think we just heard your access just crapping out? It sounds like to me.
It's this plug of the headset.
Okay.
When this one's plugged in, nothing. When this one's plugged in, it makes that noise.
Weird. You tried a different
I can hear it, yeah.
same thing, different jack. Why don't you go ahead and turn it off and then turn it back on? The old engine.
That's what I did the first time. I wonder if it's something with like this mess.
Doubt it, but you never know.
Like something about the wires finally being that tangled. I don't know. It's such a wild sound for it to make.
Right.
Good.
Jen, did
That's
you send us to break, or did we just go into a break?
Yeah, I just wanted to break. Yeah. Because I wasn't sure whether it was just coming like over the air.
Right.
Like,
No, that was the right call.
yeah. Whether I thought we could kind of diagnose not off the air.
Okay.
And that's your only headset there, right, Patrick?
I'm checking that right now. Yep. Well, I guess that's it for me this morning.
Weird.
So you're welcome to come in here.
Do you think I should bring the whole, like, I guess pack the whole thing up at this point?
Yeah. Unless you just want to, give it a rest for a few minutes, try it again.
Yeah, I mean, I will.
Because I can, that's the classic thing, right? Hey, man, this thing doesn't work anymore. And then you go show it to Ed and you turn it on and plug it in. Hey, it's working fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, that's happened with my laptop. Both times I've taken it to the computer thing. It hasn't worked, and then it turns right on in front of them.
Classic.
It definitely would help if you had a second headset to test.
Yeah.
Because for sure, like when you were connected, once you turn it off and on or whatever, I wasn't hearing anything coming through Q. So it's not like the unit per se. All right, heading back in.
Take Patrick out real quick.
You guys are up.
Apologize for technical issues there. I just thought it might be the world not agreeing with your gas baggy hot take or just not wanting to hear it. Bill, I believe you were we were talking about the NC State disqualification, and you were going back to the 2016 College World Series with Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, I forget how long that one lasted or played out, but I know it didn't end on time. I want to say it ended like on a Friday just because of constant rainouts. It ended in the middle of the afternoon. I'm not sure if they just couldn't make that work or why you couldn't have pushed back a day or two, or there's a lot there that I really don't understand, and maybe the NCAA will come up with an explanation. Maybe we'll hear more in the coming hours or days just as to why it couldn't have been pushed back a day or two or what exactly was going on. Maybe you'll hear something from NC State's point of view. Just kind of an odd situation all the way around, but I feel bad for those young guys that battled and got all the way there. And I think you called them last week. I think you actually referring to Vanderbilt, but we referred to NC State as the team of destiny.
Yeah, they certainly seem like it. And I know Tommy Moody kind of felt this way going into the College World Series, that they were playing some of the best baseball, if not the best baseball in the country, and they were his pick. NC State was his pick to win the College World Series, and certainly in great shape. And then this hit, and I think so. Originally, I'm reading the breakdown of D1Baseball.com. Kendall Rogers has it all, and he's talked to the NCAA specifically, and he's got sources inside the NC State program. So I think you'll probably get the most information from his breakdown, and tries to break it down from a timeline, and mentions that Elliott Avent, even in a post-game press conference earlier in the week last week, talked about there was a bit of a bug going around his team and at least one player, and that one player did end up testing positive for COVID, which meant his roommate originally goes into isolation, and then I think his roommate eventually tested positive. The numbers got to 4, I think possibly after the game Friday. It was an afternoon game Friday, right? I think after that game, the number got to 4 positive tests, and that reached outbreak status as far as the NCAA qualifies it. And then that means everybody had to get tested, even vaccinated players that were previously untested. And then there were 4 more. So if you were looking for numbers, I think the final number for NC State was 8 positive COVID tests amongst their entire traveling party, is how they put it. And they don't get more specific than that. And on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, Neil says HIPAA laws don't keep the NCAA from giving a decent explanation on what happened. We don't need specifics, but they can talk numbers and why the decision was made. And so I think this might have been their relatively weak effort, in my opinion, to do that, actually giving the information to a guy that might cover college baseball closer than anybody else, or a website that does it, D1Baseball.com. The problem from an optics standpoint, for sure, a PR standpoint, was that the NCAA put out a statement that said the Harris County health experts basically made this decision. And I think the county representatives or the county put out a PR release saying, nope, we've actually cleared them, and it was the NCAA's decision. Well, I mean, can you imagine being NC State hearing that mess, right? And I know NC State, from its perspective, at least reading this Kendall Rogers article, was not satisfied with the communication from the NCAA during all of this, which obviously a bunch of emotions are tied up into it. And all you had to do is go on social media on Saturday to see. And I feel like, Bill, it's the easy take to say, oh, NCAA at it again, right? But when you're in charge of an event and this happens, I don't think there is an easy answer for sure. I just feel like there could have been something done. In this Kendall Rogers article, he mentions that NC State offered on Friday, when this was going down and the delay was happening, offered that they would just play a doubleheader on Saturday. And the NCAA said, no, we're not going to do this. And then they had the ridiculously tough decision to forfeit on Friday, or to go ahead and play with that limited roster. And obviously that's not much of a choice, right? You go ahead and play the game if you can, instead of just give up a loss. But unfortunately, it didn't matter if they wanted to play again on Saturday because of more positive tests, and ultimately disqualified from Omaha. Something unlike we've ever seen before, man. And I tweeted it out at the time. It stinks. Obviously, it's brutal for NC State. And I don't know what else the NCAA could have done, but I am surprised, Bill, as we sit here at the end of June, after however many months, 15, 16, 17 months, whatever it is, that we didn't see more of this on a kind of game in, game out basis. Obviously, Gamecock basketball saw a ton of issues during its season. But I think overall, as sports fans, we were relatively fortunate that this didn't happen more often. That's kind of what I come away with this whole thing with. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the last athletic sporting event, collegiate sporting event for the year, right? We don't have, nothing else is going on college-wise for sports, right?
As far as I know, unless there's a weird field hockey tournament that we're unaware of.
Track and field or anything. I'm not missing anything like that. We don't expect to have to deal with this anymore. It's a shame that it ends up this way for North Carolina State. They were playing really well, and you feel bad for the kids. But hopefully, we're not dealing with this anymore in the future with the start of college football now. When I say the start, I'm talking about fall camp here, about a month away, and then we get into full capacity stadiums and kind of the return to normal. You hope that this doesn't happen again, but it's a shame for everybody. And you're right, I just scanned it very quickly. D1baseball.com does have a pretty good breakdown from talking to inside sources and who they've been able to get in touch with of kind of how everything went down. And it's a shame. Certainly not what you want to see for NC State.
Vandy's a bit of the evil wrestler in college baseball to begin with, just because they're a private school and they have a bit of a different scholarship situation, and they're so good. Gene says, so if Vandy wins the national championship, will there always be some kind of what if? You can guarantee it. A lot of Mississippi State fans going into tonight. Hour 2 coming up.
Gamecock Larry has the answer.
Offensive production so far in the College World Series and how maybe the heat of
Sorry, I keep trying to pop Patrick on, and he's doing the same thing, I think. Go ahead, Patrick. You're not on yet.
All right. It's definitely dead because I just went searching for my thing so I could plug in my own headphones and see if it did the same thing. And then when I came back, it came off.
Really?
It came back as off.
Yeah, it's off. It wouldn't turn back on.
Not a battery issue that you know of? You got the...
No, it's plugged in.
Well, luckily there's been good
Oh.
maintenance done, so.
Maybe it is a better issue. Let me check. It's plugged in, but this isn't plugged in.
Good, dude. Ed, come on, fix this thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that taking that to Ed would have been a lot of fun.
Don't sweat it. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
But now we know what it sounds like when a
When the
access
battery dies?
power.
Oh, man, that would have been hilarious.
That would have been hilarious.
Well, it would have been hilarious until Ed sends it off and is like, yeah, it's going to be like $1,200 to fix.
And it's back on.
All right.
Crazy how that works.
You know, they should design a new access unit where it's more obvious when it's charging, like your phone or laptop.
That's funny.
I mean, can it give you a low battery warning of some sorts?
Yeah,
No?
give me something. Just
Anything other than the most annoying sound in the world would be good.
okay. So the first thing to know when the battery's dying, the first thing that goes is the touch screen. Because I told Tim before the show, my touch screen portion is not working. I had to use the arrows, and then it'll start making a really loud noise as soon as it's plugged in, and then it will just turn off. So
Nice.
the low battery warning is the touchscreen going out. That's when you know.
Everybody knows that, Patrick. Come on.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's going to be our new thumbnail.
Like you were only running in fourth
The
gear,
video
like,
is Patrick just holding up the unplugged battery.
Look at that.
Working perfectly fine now, huh?
Perfectly fine.
Sweet.
I did the exact same thing when I went to plug in my laptop. I had plugged it in on the side here and just hadn't plugged it in the wall yet. And it said low battery. I was like, what is going on here?
Oh, I had it plugged in on both ends. These parts were just disconnected because I had them behind the laptop. So I guess it just.
Yeah. Odds have been 50-50 for me even finding that. I was just been like, yeah, it's plugged in.
Yeah, it's right here. I can see it.
Oh.
I'm just kind of having this nightmare of had it been brought in to be looked at, how awful
Yeah.
it would have been.
Well, it also hasn't been used in a week, so it's just stayed unplugged for a week, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It probably got unplugged. It probably got unplugged 2 Thursdays ago.
Wait, it probably got unplugged 2 Thursdays ago?
Yeah, because I was in studio all week last week.
Oh, that's true.
He's been busy cleaning and
So good weekend on the boat, Bill?
Yeah, we took Ansley out. Tubin took Ansley out. She survived 2 different times, but she's still learning. And I'm really still learning how to really tow people, because there is like just the safety of like, making sure you're not around any other boats, and B, I don't want her. She's 11. I don't want to go out in like open water where it's real choppy and everything. So
it's better to be in a cove. Yep.
Yeah, and then just the turning of you turn around, you throw them outside of the wake, and not trying to like whip, because again, she has fun, but not trying to just whip her outside the lake and kind of snap the rope, pop it back. But she did okay. She had one. She bounced about 3 or 4 feet up in the air, hit it. It was one of those singular tubes, and she hit a wave, and she held on for a second, came back down, and then lost her grip, hit the tube again, and you just saw her go flying and tumbling over. And she said she wasn't sore or anything, but I pulled the boat back around and was like, all right, you want to go again, or you want to get on the boat? She's like, I'll get on the boat this time. So it was good. We went out for a little cruise. Like I said, we wanted to eat. I didn't want to eat too late. Still didn't necessarily make that work, but we went out late this afternoon. We avoided all the storms. It looked like there was a ton of storms over on the Irmo Chapin side all day long. So, we went to those pictures I sent. Yeah, we went to a birthday party for one of
the animal pictures.
Went to that Eudora Farms. That was actually pretty fun. I mean, that was the way they did it was actually pretty neat. The way they actually did it was pretty neat. If it was like, say, me, I probably would not do it, because you drive your car through it. You drive your own personal car. And so, like, you've got these camels, and they just come up there. They're not caged in. They're just roaming this field. So, like, if one of these ones that had horns, an antelope or whatever,
we're in the open,
wants to come up and like scratch your car while you're trying to feed them, they don't really understand. Or if a camel decides he's going to stick his head in through the sunroof, and so we were on a trailer, because it was a bunch of kids and a bunch of parents.
There you go.
The other part about that is, if you're driving and you start looking over and you see something that's really cool, you can run over an ostrich right in front of you.
Never come back. You're up.
And great to have Jen back in the Herndon Chevrolet Studios, downtown Columbia, producing, pushing the buttons, in charge, and working through a bit of a technical issue with Patrick working from home this morning. Just remember, it's good to have something plugged in. Good to have it plugged in.
If you ever hear a loud humming like that, just text in and say somebody plugged their unit in. That was first in the eardrum learning that lesson.
So if you watch this show on the live video stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter as well, you got to see all this go down. And you got to see a little bit behind the scenes of how the show works. And then you just got to listen to Bill's recap of hanging out with camels and other live animals that we will get to on the radio version of the show at some point this morning. But so much happened over the weekend from the Gamecock perspective, especially with a busy official visit weekend. 12 guys coming in. 8 commitments in the last 8 days is my count. And getting a big assist here from Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell over there at Gamecock Central, trying to break this down. Yesterday, it was Anthony Rose, the 4-star safety from Miami, recommitting to the Gamecocks. And as the story goes, it looks like the main reason for his original decommitment is that his grandfather wasn't on board and his family wasn't necessarily sold about South Carolina. They did visit this weekend, and Shane Beamer as the story goes, asked him, all right, so are you going to join the family? And Anthony Rose is like, hey, ask that guy. Ask my grandfather. He was the one that really needed to be convinced. And grandfather says, yep, he's going to be a Gamecock. And that's the first official 4-star commit bill for Carolina in this class of 2022. That now also includes technically a guy who will start playing in 2021, who actually played a season in 2020, and yet from his college eligibility standpoint, still has all 4 years to play. Right? The usual. Where we are now in 2021 is crazy. I'm talking about Kansas defensive back and corner, freshman All-American in Karan Prunty, who committed he chose the Gamecocks over Tennessee, made that transfer news official on Saturday. And I think we all agree, no offense against the two guys who committed on Friday, was a wide receiver from N-State and Clarendon Hall, an 8-man program that is an interesting profile as well in Kylik Horton. And then it was Kason Henry, big offensive lineman from Marietta, Georgia, who committed on Friday. But Prunty kind of leads the way at this point because Shane Beamer and the Gamecock program are where they are after so many defections from the secondary last year that they need guys in immediately who can play. And Prunty has the resume to be that guy, having been a freshman All-American for Kansas last year.
Yeah, I feel like you essentially have traded John Dixon, who went to Penn State, and Dixon, I think was going to be a pretty sound player for South Carolina. I think Dixon would have worked out and been a guy that would have been a starter this year. But Karan Prunty, at least statistically speaking, and as you mentioned with the freshman All-American, appears to be a little bit better. But we'll see. We'll see whose career and how that kind of all develops there between those guys. But Prunty kind of filling the void for John Dixon. Look, you still can't really replace J.C. Horn and Israel Bakwamu. Jamie Robinson, another guy that defected from the defensive backfield that was a starter and played a lot. But as I said, at least you've got a lot of people for Torian Gray to work with. You've got your main 4 guys, your young guys, as I continue to call them, Cam Smith, Dominic Hill, Joey Hunter, and O'Donnell Fortune, the 4 kind of young guys. Then you've got R.J. Roderick, the veteran of the group. That takes you to 5. I know some people want to throw Jalen Foster in there as well, as he didn't play last year. That's 6. And then you've added Marcellus Dow and Isaac. Marcellus Dow already on campus. Isaac Norris, another defensive back that will enroll here, I believe, either in July or in August. You've got Carlins Patel and Tyrese Ross, 2 more transfers coming in that they can play back there. And then you've got 1 freshman in LeBrian Craig that you recruited and signed. So the number's a little bit better. I think you're able to fill out a 2 deep now. That's a good thing. I don't think you'll be able to get past that, but at least you've got enough to kind of at least set up a 2 deep, and maybe you have enough talent. I'll be interested to see. You have enough talent that your secondary is not the weak link that we thought it would have been or would be maybe coming out of the spring game.
Bill, we affectionately refer to you as the resident recruiting nerd on the show. Has the University of South Carolina ever signed a guy that played 8-man football? I can't remember it, following it kind of tangentially now for the last few decades. Gates Adams is the story in the state of South Carolina, playing a lot of 8-man football before signing up with Clemson. I think went to Fort Union Prep for a year before going to Clemson and becoming an All-American and a big-time draft pick. I don't remember any Gamecocks just being 8-man football players like Kylik Horton is going to be now from down at Clarendon Hall.
No, I have no clue if there's anybody from 8-man football. We'll see with Kylik Horton. I know that his what he did at the camp, just in terms of testing, is what really earned him an offer. He had a just right around a 4.5 40, 38-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot 2-inch broad jump. He was able to at least catch the football competently. Who knows? This is a kid. I did ask a few people this weekend just because it felt like he was going to commit, and they said, "Look, not a guy that you really count on to come in and contribute right away. Maybe he shocks everybody. Maybe he does, but a couple people have been around the program compared what he looks like as a football. It's just such. I hate it when people do this, but I'm about to do it myself. But the height, the frame, kind of the way they just move was very comparable to Sidney Rice. Now, will he be a Sidney Rice? Who knows? We'll talk about that in 4 years. Sidney Rice was incredible, made some incredible catches, was an incredible athlete. But again, people that have been around the program for a long time, at least said, like, if you compared the body types, if you compared the movements, if you compared the raw statistical athletic numbers, there would be your comparison. Sidney was far more developed, having obviously played at a big time program like Gaffney. So don't try to say, I'm not trying to sell Kyler Horton as the next Sidney Rice or anything, but for example, you compare body types and stuff. Alshon Jeffrey was a bigger, like, physical receiver coming out of Calhoun County. Like that body type was different. It was big. It was physical. He was college ready right off the bat. It's probably going to be a few years before we really see what Kyler Horton is, but certainly a very intriguing prospect. One that, look, South Carolina at this point right now, you gotta hit on some of these kind of under the radar guys. I mean, you've got to be able to go out and evaluate. I do still think Will Muschamp was able to evaluate certain players. Ernest Jones, DJ Wanham, two guys that they beat out Indiana and Duke for, not known as football powerhouses. And obviously those guys have gone on to be 3rd and 4th round picks in the NFL draft. That's good evaluations. And that right there is being able to also coach up and develop a player. And South Carolina is not going to be in the running for a ton of 4- and 5-star elite game-changing athletes right off the bat. You got to land some of these guys, and you got to hope that they turn out and be solid football players for you.
Oh, 6'4", 180, by the way, is what Kyler Horton lists as right now. And Craig hits us up on the Facebook live stream, says jumping 38 inches at 6'4" is pretty nasty. And it has been a missing element for the Gamecock passing attack in recent years, not having that big wide receiver, that Alshon Jeffrey, Sidney Rice type that you mentioned, Bill, that Steve Spurrier always seemed to have as a go-to guy, especially in the red zone. And this year we'll see if EJ Jenkins can be that guy at 6'7", an obvious candidate to be that guy, but still a lot to prove coming up from a Division II program. 803-404-6100, by the way, the number to get in. You're talking about under the radar prospects, and that's what Karan Prunty is. He was a 2-star guy out of Portsmouth, Virginia, and Kansas kind of got in early on him. I read before Virginia and Virginia Tech kind of came to him, so that's why he ended up going all the way from Virginia to Kansas to play for Les Miles. Les Miles is out, freshman All-American season, going to transfer, and on Saturday picks the Gamecocks over Tennessee. And as far as immediate impact, he's the guy. The rest of these guys we're talking about will not play this year for the Gamecocks. They will play in 2022 at the earliest. But Shane Beamer and this roster needs help now, right? We've seen several more transfers come in. Probably still going to see a few more, I would expect. I'm guessing you're on the same boat. You're in the same boat there, Bill. But a guy who has a proven track record already in a pass-happy conference like the Big 12 seems to be exactly what Torian Gray, Shane Beamer need right now, and can really help, I think, propel maybe the reputation that the coaching staff has that's compared to a lot of others, especially in the SEC, a bit of an unknown. And Bill, you mentioned in hour number 1, compared to another first-year head coach in the SEC like Brian Harsin over at Auburn, who has 3 commits right now. The Gamecock coaching staff seems to have some solid early returns after this really busy June that's almost done.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Again, what does it actually mean when they start playing? But Tyrese Ross from the Pac-12, which throws the football around a lot. Tyrese Ross from Washington State, Karan Prunty from Kansas. Obviously, having seen some passing attacks, you get guys who, at least you can kind of say, all right, well, they've seen the ball in the air. They're used to being attacked through the passing game. Now, what can Torian Gray do and develop with those guys, along with the guys that he's already gotten went through spring ball with? I think that is a great question. Again, I'm not going to try and sell that the secondary just went to being a strength of the team. You're going to need to see some development, but we're about a month away from the start of fall camp, and that'll give Torian Gray about 28 to 29 practices to really continue to be able to hammer home what they want to do. But certainly 2 guys who have college experience, you like adding them to the defensive secondary that's really, really, really inexperienced. Those 4 guys that I mentioned in Cam Smith and O'Donnell Forch and Joey Hunter, Dominic Hill, are all guys that I think have the tools necessary to be good defensive backs, but they don't have the snaps. Cam Smith's the closest thing to that. We've seen him struggle at times and played maybe a little bit better towards the end of the season, but is definitely right now the most experienced of those 4 guys. But you bring in now Marcellus Dial, Isaac Norris, and junior college players, and then you combine those with some transfers. At least you've got some depth. Now you hope it's quality depth to be able to run out there. But to your point, Tyrese Ross, Karan Prunty, 2 guys from Power 5 schools that, again, they come from conferences where the football being thrown around is something they're kind of accustomed to see.
Of all the kids that they have landed, like transfers that they're going to play this year, on June 28th, who is going to be the biggest impact in Bill Gunter's mind?
That was an epically dramatic question, Patrick. You're watching on the
I
video stream. He's got his arms crossed, leaning back. Whew. Raising the drama a little bit.
I'm just happy to be here. I didn't think I was going to.
yeah. So you're going back to bed. I'm going to go with E.J. Jenkins. I think that E.J. Jenkins, of everybody, I haven't seen Prunty play. I haven't seen Tyrese Ross. It would be one of those 3. But South Carolina is in such need of pass catchers. And one thing I'll say about E.J. Jenkins in the spring game, at least it looked like he could fit on the field. Coming from St. Francis, your initial reaction is like, well, Ben, that's a minor step up in competition there. Like that's going to be the adjustment. E.J. Jenkins looks like a guy who at least belonged on the field, and that as he continues to go through summer and goes through those 25, 26, whatever it is, 28, practices in fall camp, that is somebody that can bail Luke Doty out or whoever the quarterback is and be – I'm not going to say that he's an all-conference player, but I feel like there's so many question marks at receiver and just trying to find guys to throw the football to. One thing that was interesting from the weekend, Oscar Delp, who we talked a little bit about on Friday morning, just there was an article in a state paper about his family and his ties to South Carolina. Delp, the number 2 tight end in the nation, visiting this weekend, really down to South Carolina and Georgia. Well, one of the comments he made in an interview with either the Big Spur or with Gamecock Central was that they basically said that he would catch 60 passes a year. I was like, well,
minimum.
Minimum.
Speaking of that, as soon as he said that, I wanted to go and check the numbers on that, and that's what I'll do here. You haven't done that, have you, Bill? When's the time a Gamecock tight end caught 60 balls?
I have 0. I don't even know who.
I got to go see the record. I think that might even be a record, the minimum that they were selling. That was an interesting note from Delp for sure. Go ahead.
And I only say that because that tells me that, Nick Muse is going to be involved, and Eric Shaw or Jaheim Bell, depending on how they're utilized. But E.J. Jenkins is, if I'm basing it off of that, you would think E.J. Jenkins is lining himself up to have a lot of passes thrown his way this coming season. So to answer your question, I'll take E.J. Jenkins as the guy who makes the biggest impact.
When you started that saying the need for pass catchers, I thought you were going to say Amarion Brown because he's actually done it at the Power 5 level.
Very true. Didn't I don't know if anybody separated themselves, but with all that being said, I would go with E.J. Jenkins.
Okay, I just looked it up quickly here. Talking about total passes, Willie Scott thought to be one of the, if not the best tight end in Gamecock school history. Played back in 1977 to 80 and was a first-round draft pick. He caught a total of 63 passes. Okay, you can say that was a bit of a different era, the whole deal. What about Steve Spurrier and Jared Cook? Total of 73 catches in his career in 3 seasons. Hayden Hurst did have a couple of 40-catch seasons for the Gamecocks and ended up catching 44 in his last year at Carolina. But certainly an interesting number that popped out from the weekend. And Oscar Delp, a 4-star tight end, number 2 tight end recruit in the country, like you mentioned, Bill, from the state of Georgia, seems to be down to South Carolina and Georgia. And plenty, I think his mom went to the University of South Carolina, and his grandfather owns a I guess, a relatively well-known piece of land nearby, and there are plenty of connections there. Said blown away by the visit, and has also visited other programs like Georgia. I think Michigan may be on that list as well. So overall, seemingly overwhelmingly positive weekend for Gamecock football, but I would have expected to hear that feedback after having 12 official visitors kind of on deck. But 8 commitments in 8 days is a little bit more concrete, even though they're unofficial verbal commitments, right? I guess maybe Prunty might be a lot more official, especially if he's enrolled in school in the next couple of days. That's where I would have gone with your question, Patrick, especially because of the need for defensive backs being what it is and the immediate need. But we don't know how well Luke Doty and Marcus Satterfield are going to be able to get the offense going in the air, especially. That's why I would stay away from the wide receiver right now. But we do know that the Gamecock secondary will be attacked, and will be attacked mercilessly until they can prove they can stop anybody in the SEC from throwing the football around. And so I think we're going to see that tested and retested, and that's going to be a key. Remember, I'll never forget, it was T-Rob saying that J.C. Horn and Israel Mukwamu, 2 of the best corners in the country, a couple of years ago. And he said the season's going to be pretty simple. Well, we'll have a good season. If they don't, we won't. Ended up going 4-8. Clearly, J.C. Horn was still a really good player, and Israel Mukwamu also got drafted, and yet still the defense just hasn't been very good in the last couple of years for the Gamecocks. We'll continue to discuss Carolina football. Good to see our favorite 86-year-old caller up early with us, 803-404-6100. If you would like to join the show, it's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
Hey, I lost all my private chat stuff. You might have to send me back, or you have to tell me if I've got something.
You're good.
Do I have anything else?
Next break.
Yeah, all that. I don't like it does that, but all that private chat stuff is gone that told me when we're doing everything.
What's that? Sorry?
My thing froze up, and I just exited out and came back in. And so all the private chat stuff is gone. So the spots I don't have.
I'll retype it right now for you so you can have it in there. Cool.
Yeah.
You see that one?
Yeah, perfect. That's all of it. That's perfect for me. If
That's all for you. Yep.
That'll work.
Patrick, anything interesting this weekend?
Yeah, a lot. Started.
In a good way?
No, only bad ways. It started Friday because I guess the guys doing construction on Sumter Street didn't clean up their equipment because I got like when I was driving home on the show from the show Friday, I got the low tire pressure signal. I was like, okay, I guess I better fill up my tires before I go to work tonight. And when I was pulling in my neighborhood, I was driving on the rim. I was like, oh gosh.
Oh,
And it was just an enormous nail in my car, in my tire. And so I had to get a tow. My insurance thankfully tows. And then the people at the shop said the nail was too big, so they wouldn't patch it. So I had to get a new tire. So that sucked.
Fun start to the week.
Then yesterday, I spent like 2 hours taking apart my garbage disposal and like scraping out like rust and things because it just completely stopped and the motor was humming, but it wasn't spinning. And I still haven't been able to put it back on. So it's just sitting there unplugged right now. So that'll be for today.
Now, you sure it was plugged in to begin with, right?
No, it's plugged in and it's running now. The problem is I can't get it hooked. I can't get it hooked back into the sink.
Before you unhooked it, did you hit the reset button?
Yeah, it was humming.
Yeah, mine did that one time. It was humming, but something was wrong with the motor, and I just had to hit the little red reset button that was up under there. And
no, initially it wasn't humming at all. It was making no noise.
Gotcha.
And then I hit the reset button, then it was humming but not spinning.
Gotcha.
It shouldn't have made any noise if it wasn't.
But
if the reset
are
button was
you
off.
renting?
Yeah.
So shouldn't they take care of that for you?
Yeah, but I didn't want to give him any stuff to deal with. He lives in Charlotte.
Wow.
And he would have had to pay for somebody to come out here and then not been like totally happy. And I don't know how legit our rental agreement is, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounded completely shady.
But
No, I mean it's just like it's not like I didn't sign a
it
contract.
sounds more
with,
like he really doesn't know we're living here, and
no, he knows. No, he knows.
Lawyers,
But
right? Could be involved.
no, it's just a guy. It's just a guy that I Venmo every month. It's not like a property management company or anything like that.
Right.
my concern is if you don't get it fixed, then it has to be replaced or fixed for real.
No, I'll get it. It's just the bracket that hooks on. Like it's too heavy, and for me to hold up with one hand and hook it on,
Yeah.
so I needed a second pair of hands.
Yep.
Or a jack.
That goes right.
I think this is going to continue into the season. But right now, it's a really interesting time for Gamecock fans. And you say, wait a second, it's late. The season doesn't start for months. How could this possibly be an interesting time? But I think, Bill, what's happening right now for Gamecock fans, just gauging social media, which is always a little tricky for sure. But I think some are just tremendously excited right now. And the latest commitment was Anthony Rose, who had decommitted earlier, 4-star safety from down in Miami. And then as the story goes, he needed to get his grandfather on board. He's on board. It's at Shane Beamer's office. Shane Beamer asked him, all right, you're going to join the family? And Rose points over to his grandfather. Like, ask that guy. I don't know. Grandfather says, yep, it's going to be a game. But Bill, I think a lot of Carolina fans, having gone through the Will Muschamp era and being a little scarred, having seen solid recruiting numbers, I think want to guard against getting overly optimistic after 8 commitments in the last 8 days, because I think this group of fans feels like they've seen good recruiting news in the relatively recent past before, and it hasn't resulted in good results on the field. Is that fair? A fair description of where Gamecock fans sit today? There are the ultra positive, ultra optimistic ones who will take this news from 8 commitments in the last 8 days and say, yep, this is Shane Beamer's the guy. This is proof that he's the guy, the man for the job. It's going to be different this time. Then there are those sitting in the middle and say he had to have this because of where that roster was and where this program is and who it's fighting against, knowing that the upcoming schedule has already been rated the 5th toughest in the country. And then you have the negative Nellies on the other side of that thing saying, oh, that's not going to be good enough. They need a lot more than this. And we've seen good recruits in the past, and it hadn't panned out. What do you think?
I think you've got a case study, a phenomenal case study in what exactly experience means prior to coaching your first game. Steve Spurrier, you gave him all the leash, all the rope, anything he wanted, because his background when he arrived at South Carolina, the Gamecocks were 6-5, but the program really seemed like it wasn't in a good place. But you just said, hey, whatever Spurrier does, he can do no wrong, right? He's going to take this guy. I was going back and looking over the weekend because I wanted to kind of compare. And I wanted to go back and look at his first recruiting class, like the build-up during the summer. I mean, I remember being at the first spring game for Steve Spurrier. And it was kind of like, all right, well, we've got Spurrier. He can do no wrong. Look at what he's done in college his whole life. We're going to be fantastic. We're going to set the world on fire. Then you get Will Muschamp, and that was, I think, skepticism at its best, right? Well, this guy failed at Florida. Why is he going to be a good fit here? If you can't get it done with all the resources that Florida has, you can't win an East. You can't win a championship. You can't do anything. Why in the world can you do it at South Carolina? And so everything he did, I think, if there was anything that was semi-positive, and I'll give you an example. His biggest recruit that year came right at the end of July or the beginning of August. I have to go back and look at the exact date. And that was Jamias Williams. Big-time recruit, beats out Georgia for him, beats out, I think at the time, Ohio State, or I can't remember if Ohio State really came in strong there at the very end. But was Jamias Williams. Maybe that's when people were kind of like, okay, wait a minute, this guy's supposed to be a pretty good recruiter. I'll get on board with him now. Now is when it's looking like he's being able to maybe turn the corner. Now you got Shane Beamer with no track record as a head coach whatsoever. There's nothing positive that you can point to that he's done as a head coach like you could with Steve Spurrier. There's nothing negative. There's none of that baggage. So it's all brand new, and I think the excitement that he brings with him to the program, because I'm like you, I saw a tweet pop up over the weekend. It's like, Shane Beamer got more elite recruits on campus in 1 month than Will Muschamp did 5 years. I was like, well, that's not really true. Muschamp did a good job of getting guys on campus, and he landed some of them. That first recruiting class that he landed, you go back to it, it's not a bad recruiting class. Shi Smith in the NFL, Javon Kinlaw in the NFL, Keyshawn Nixon in the NFL. That's Dennis Daly in the NFL. Took him is Daly Patrick still the starting left tackle for the Panthers?
Right tackle, I think, yeah, because Taylor Moton's there. But I think as of now, he's still starting.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, you look at that first recruiting class, Tim, in hindsight, pretty good recruiting class. You know, 4 of your guys have gone on to be in the NFL. Not a bad recruiting class. But the baggage of Will Muschamp, I don't think allowed fans to get as excited as they are today, even though you might have had a few better players in that recruiting class. We'll see what Shane Beamer does. I think you get off to the 2-0 start. You beat Eastern Illinois like you should by 4 or 5 touchdowns. You win the East Carolina game on the road, even if it's not as easy as some would hope. You don't get just absolutely blown out of Athens in a night game there. And then you get to that Kentucky game, and people, I think the energy, the momentum, just the positive vibes will be a lot more than they ever were under Will Muschamp, because, again, you don't have the baggage that Will Muschamp showed up with that I think always had people being skeptical.
LeVar hits us up on the YouTube live stream, says, until I see different, I believe in this coaching staff's ability to coach up the talent. Muschamp seemed to have that issue at Florida and here. It may speak largely to how he leads a program. 803-404-6100. Gamecock Lair should be good and warmed up by the time we get to him when we come back. It's the early game here on 107.5 Game.
Home of the Gamecocks and new head football coach, Shane Beamer.
That's right. Getting excited about college football season. You got to start thinking about tailgating a little bit and what kind of car or truck you use to tailgate. Maybe you're starting to think, I don't have the right one. No better place than Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park to go and find that great tailgating vehicle. whether it's a Silverado or a Tahoe. I promise you this, the folks that love Chevrolet have not only got you taken care of with the largest selection of Chevrolets anywhere in the Midlands, 14 acres to be exact, but they're also going to take care of you with their low price guarantee. It means you can go shop other dealerships, take their deal back to the folks at Love Chevrolet, and they'll top it. Now, if not, they'll write you a check for $1,000. Hasn't happened yet. Won't happen anytime soon. So at Love Chevrolet, you got the largest selection, you got the lowest prices. But you know what really makes you feel great about visiting and going to Love Chevrolet to make that purchase is the sales staff. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They've been there, most of them, for over 20 years. They understand the ins and outs of the car or truck business. They can explain to you why that car or truck isn't just good for tailgating, but for your everyday commute. Gas mileage, how it'll affect you. Maybe you have to drive a little bit further. The sales folks at Love Chevrolet are the best in the business. That's why I always go back to them. It's why you should go see them as well. They'll treat you like a family member, make sure you're taken care of, make sure you feel comfortable with your purchase when you drive off the lot. Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or on the web, lovechevy.com. Get out to Love Chevrolet and find new roads.
Still that report of some
I thought dropping Ray's name may calm him down a little bit, but
it was 9 texts at that point at like 6:25.
that was why I did it, because I was like, dude, you gotta like calm down. Like,
Oh, he's back.
that's why I said it, yeah. But at least that one's a more toned down, like,
Right. It was an hour and 10 break he took there.
so had some welding work he needed to do.
Or just any work, because he's not working when he's texting 10 times an hour.
This is true.
Patrick, I'm confused about the sweatshirt. Help me out. How are you going sweatshirt inside right now?
I don't know.
What's the air at your place? I thought you were the energy conscious guy.
I thought it was too, but I woke up and it was cold this morning.
Wow.
I don't know what temperature is. Let me check.
Late June.
It was cold. He's gonna come back in so grizzled because our roommate's got the air conditioner on like 68.
Man, I tried to put this basketball up there to sell. You guys see that?
What'd you just try to do?
Trying to put it up here with the spell on me.
Oh, good job.
Oh wow. Stay.
Koozies are good for. See if I can get a koozie castle going. There we go.
The air went out at my mom's, but I didn't realize it. Like seemed like it was warm. I was like, well, it'll kick in. So for like 3 nights, it's like, seriously. Oh my gosh. Finally got it fixed the day I left.
I guess not that it'll matter, but this little sunroom I was at, I was thinking for the mornings, but again, I won't be here in the mornings like I have been. Buying one of those little electric fireplaces. Have you seen those to kind of put TV on? It'll make the room look, I will buy one because it'll just make the room look a little bit nicer and clean it up a little bit. Won't look like a man cave out here, but that is what I think I'm going to purchase here. I was looking for one maybe on sale here in the next few weeks.
It's 71, but it's set to cool.
71 is low. That's what I keep my house on.
Yeah. Well, my roommate was in LA last week and got back at midnight, so he definitely walked in the house, was like, it's hot, and turned the AC on.
Never forget having a conversation with the power company, first house in Columbia. Get my first bill. I'm like, whoa, call them up. They're like, yeah, you probably need a lifestyle adjustment. You've been on 75 there in the summer, Chief. I'm like, all right.
The worst thing that ever happened in one of my houses was it was like the toilet had like a weird handle. Or no, what it was if the seat was up and you flushed it while the seat was up, the seat would keep the handle pushed down.
Right.
Water
So
ran.
we had like guests one weekend or something, or like we were like going out from my house and somebody used the bathroom and left it up, and it ran for basically a whole week, and our water bill was like $300 one month.
Oof.
Yeah.
So I had to put a big sign behind the toilet that said, "Push the seat down. Always put the seat down because the handle will just keep running."
Yeah. That's
Brutal. That was a tough lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the two dumbest texts we've ever gotten in back to back. Like not offensively dumb, just dumb. From Richard. If anybody's going to take over 20 touchdown passes for Ryan Helinski this year, that's a heck of a bet. And now he's telling us to stop talking about Will Muschamp altogether.
Like it didn't happen.
I'm seeing right now, did Clayton Thornton ever throw 20 touchdowns? Once. Okay.
I mean, what's the Gamecock touchdown record?
I don't know, but I was Northwestern quarterbacks, and I picked Clayton Thornton because he's the last one that I know got drafted, and he threw 22 touchdowns one time.
Yeah.
All right, we're back
may
in.
not even be the starter there.
We have Gamecock Larry, right?
We do. Yep, we do. I guess right.
8 commitments the last 8 days is the headline. Some of these guys still have not revealed it publicly. There are a couple of welcome home tweets out last week from Shane Beamer where prospects have not come out and identified themselves. Bill, is this a newer trend, or was this the case back in the day and we just maybe didn't know about it as much because head coaches weren't tweeting out their hashtag phrases, and guys would go ahead and call the show or call the coaching staff and say, "Hey, I'm committed to you, but I want to make my announcement on this date because this date is special to me because of X, Y, or Z," or is this just a new trend in the new generation?
I don't know. I am one of those conspiracy theorists that at times you ask a recruit to hold off on going public so that you set it up maybe when you get a little bit more bang for your buck. I know that used to happen a little bit more frequently when you had the February signing day. A kid would commit on an official visit in January, and coaches would be like, "Man, if you'll just wait until signing day," because that's when all the coverage is. That's when everybody's talking about it. So the perfect example that I remember, and I can't remember who the defensive line coach was at the time, but it was when Lou Holtz landed Marquis Hall. Marquis Hall was a big-time defensive lineman out of North Carolina. South Carolina had him committed for like 3 weeks and asked him to wait till signing day because they knew that ESPN would be doing all the coverage and there'd be all the excitement and everything. And it would be this big splash in recruiting. I don't think Holtz in particular was the one behind that. It might have been Skip Holtz. But, you used to have that. So I don't know if it's a kid calling up and going, "Hey, coach, ready to commit to you." And the coach going, "All right, sounds great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to need you to wait until July 4th weekend when people are really on their Twitter machine, or we can really get some excitement out of this." I don't know if it's that, because I'll also say this. If I'm a coach and a kid calls me up and says, "Hey, coach, I'm committed to you, but I'm going to wait to announce it," I'm sitting there thinking, like, are you really committed? If you're
That's the reasoning why you send out the tweet then, right? Like, all right, man, I'm going to put it out there, and this is my word. Don't make me a liar, kind of thing. We have this bond, we have this trust, the whole thing, and I feel like that's where we are with Shane Beamer specifically, but other coaches doing the same thing. Don't you think?
That's just what I'm kind of saying is like I don't know. Beamer putting out a welcome home. Dawn Staley does the same thing, I believe, and I think Dawn Staley put out a tweet that I saw over the weekend. It's like welcoming a birdie to the nest or whatever. We don't know when that young lady will go public or who that young lady is, or we know nothing about it. But I don't know. I don't know. I have zero clue on how that exactly is playing out behind closed doors. I do kind of agree with you. Now, I do know that the third element to that is kind of strange and odd and has become much, much more of a thing since I got out of covering recruiting.
Is a kid commits and then they'll contact one of these people that are really good at it, at either making the commitment video. Then there's a whole like production team that's got to get involved, and I don't mean the school. I mean like there are people who do this. Like you got to you make this whole production. Think about Marshawn Lloyd's video. Like you can't tell me he was sitting around. What was that? It was like Memorial Day 2 years ago, I believe. He's sitting around like, you know what? I think South Carolina's the right place for me. Like clearly he had made that up in his mind weeks prior, and then took the time because his video was like 4 minutes long, wasn't it?
Sounds right. And a lot of video footage from Columbia and South Carolina and the whole thing. I think what you're alluding to on that one. I'm interested in getting more of an expert take, another expert take, I should say. Our favorite 86-year-old caller, Gamecock Larry, been waiting very patiently to weigh in on the Love Chevy phone lines this morning. Larry, how the heck are you, sir?
I'm doing okay, sir. Let me sit down. We're going on.
Oh, you're on the scooter?
Football. Yeah,
Take your time.
Got my oxygen on. We had to talk we got plenty of time to talk about football.
We go to 9 o'clock.
Let's talk about baseball
okay.
the next couple of days. I'm going to tell you something. Another goof by the NCAA. If they wanted to, they could have been a different way they could have went by this. If Vanderbilt beats Mississippi State, I will be like Clemson Sean. North Carolina State is the champion for this year. They almost beat them with 13 players, and they could have found out of giving another couple of days or something, like they trying to give Rocker and Ryder a couple of days to get ready for Mississippi for the championship series. Well, they could have made a different arrangements than what they did. Did any other team in this 8 teams, did any other team have any complications or anything with the COVID?
Yep, not that we know of.
That's what I don't understand. And if they can postpone a game from one day because of rain, 2 days because of rain, they can sure postpone a game because of COVID but no, the NCAA said the health department done it, but old Mark Emmett and the NCAA made this decision. But now if Mississippi State wins tonight, Mississippi State's championship. If Vanderbilt wins, I'd say North Carolina State should be. There'd be a question mark against it. They just want the defending champion in the final 3-game series.
We hear you,
That's
Gamecock.
all I got to say. I'll call you tomorrow when I get straightened out. I'll call you tomorrow and tell you something. But let's talk baseball. We got a long time to talk football. Go Gamecock. Go Gamecocks. Love all of you all. Bye-bye.
Hope you feel a little bit better. Sorry we caught you at a bad time, Gamecock Larry. Just for the record, Gamecock Larry, as we were talking Gamecock football, did not want to talk Gamecock football today and went to the College World Series. And, yeah, we've talked about the NC State disqualification a little bit already this morning. That was my point. Me and Gamecock Larry rarely agree, but we definitely agree here. Surely they could have done something, couldn't they? Just something. But I'm not buying into conspiracy theory. I think the NCAA would have loved to have David versus Goliath in the College World Series finals. I don't think there's any kind of – I understand Gamecock baseball fans don't particularly like Vandy. I get it. But to think there was some kind of conspiracy involved, I think it's taking it a step too far. Fortunately, we got about an hour and 10 minutes left in the show to discuss. 803-404-6100 if you would like to join. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
Sean Staley, and you're listening to the home of Fox, WNKT FM, Eastover, Columbia, 107.5, The Game.
Crowder with First Palmetto Bank, the Guru team, Jacob and Brian Koval right now helping people save money, whether it's via refinancing, maybe if you're looking to purchase that new home. Couple of different ways you can get out there and do that, but you need to start the process today. See what you can get approved for, what interest rate you can get. Give Jacob a call, 803-719-1005. Just the other day, Jacob and Brian helping a good buddy of theirs down in North Augusta, was able to actually refinance his home, had some equity in his home, get some money back, was able to pay off a credit card. I believe Brian told me he's putting a basketball court in his backyard. All kinds of really cool things there that Jacob and Brian Koval are able to help you do. You just need to start the process. Give the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder, a call today, 803-719-1005. Again, that's his cell phone. You can email him, the letter J, Crowder, CROWDER, at firstpalmetto.com. That's the email address to get in touch with him. Give him a phone call. See what interest rate you can get. You never know how much money you'll be able to save or what you can do until you just start the process. You never know, again, how it's going to work out for you. 803-719-1005. He's the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank.
Bill, what are you watching this morning?
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Really?
Yeah, we watched. I just
Without volume?
I haven't been looking at the television. I showed the kids one of those walking tours again.
Yeah.
Last night I forget which one we were looking at last night. It was another one in Sicily.
You're staying in Italy. I'm in Tokyo right now.
Yeah, we looked at one. We looked at one in Sicily last night, and I was just kind of showing it to them. It looked more touristy than the one that I looked at than Trapani.
Yeah, Trapani sounds like a very local spot. I did a little bit of Vegas this morning, but now I'm in Tokyo.
You did Vegas?
A little bit. We checked out the grounds of the Mandalay Bay and walked down the Strip a little bit. And
I got you. You said they just opened that new casino up there.
I did hear there's a giant one that just opened.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Huh?
What's the deal with that? It's just the biggest one now?
Yeah, just the biggest brand newest one.
In Vegas?
I want to go check out this one in Harrah's up in Cherokee now. This new
Me
Harrah's
too.
they got.
I do too.
Oh,
I've heard good things.
Don't go without us.
What?
Road trip.
Yeah, I've been trying to. Apparently, it's not that expensive to stay for a night.
If you stay during the week, the weekends are expensive.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, Cherokee's good, but they just opened that new one somewhere in a different part of North Carolina just recently. Not that I know about any of this.
Why is South Carolina not legalized sports betting? When is it just going to be available? It's like 50% of states now.
They must not have figured out how to get the right tax
Yep.
tie-in.
Harrah's is not new, but the sports book is new, I think. Right?
Well, they redid it. Like they've got a brand new poker room. I mean, it's not new, but
The renovations are new.
Basically, yeah. Supposedly they've added. Well, I think this is what Tim was laughing about the other day. They've added some really nice restaurants in there. It's supposed to have a really good golf course too. Sequoia National is right up there. I haven't been to Sequoia National, but
Chris, you see, Chris is. You have to understand South Carolina is always last to do anything.
That's
name, image, likeness thing. Dude, Trey here, just trying to stir it up. Please tell me Jen knows about the tractors.
The tractors.
Conversation we had on the air last week was riding mowers. When does a riding mower equal a tractor? Forget how it came up exactly.
It came up because I was talking about how I would use the push mower and a tractor, and they were like, "That's not a tractor." Or somebody took umbrage with me using riding mower and tractor.
You guys have about 45 seconds here. All right, you're up.
I get it if you want to be salty this morning, especially when it comes to baseball and the College World Series and NC State being disqualified because of COVID issues. I will point you to my Twitter right now, not because I'm a shameless promoter, which I clearly am, at Tim Hill 1075, but retweeted Randy Mazie, the West Virginia baseball coach's video. His son actually had a brain injury playing youth baseball, but was back on the field for the first time this weekend. And before his first at the opposing team calls timeout. The catcher takes off his mask, shakes the kid's hand, and then everybody comes over and shakes his hand just to show respect for getting back on the field.
10.
The positive slant this morning from the baseball perspective, trying to even things out. Hour 3 coming up. We'll get back to yelling at each other and being bitter. All right.
That was the Bill special.
I'm going to hop off for just a second.
Bill, you sat for an entire commercial break and then got up and left as soon as the segment started again.
I didn't know we were that close to, yeah. I didn't know we were that close. I just went and got more coffee. Well, I was actually messing. I cut my finger. What I was doing during that break, I actually walked off. I cut my finger yesterday real bad. And so I was trying to get a new Band-Aid on it real quick. All right, I'm going to go. I'll be right back. I got to go check on something.
Slackers, man. I'm getting my kid ready for camp. You guys can't talk?
What? Oh, sorry. No, that's fun that you're getting him ready for camp, though. Well, I kind of want to wait until Tim's back to talk about the lawnmower and garden tractor thing.
All right. Maybe you and Patrick can at least talk about F1.
There you go.
Have you not heard of that show, John? Do you have Netflix?
I do have Netflix. Never thought about really diving into it, but maybe I should. Sounds interesting.
It was, yeah. I mean, have you ever watched it, F1, or just never?
I mean, I've watched the races, but I've never watched the series.
There's only one American team, and they're like very new. Haas.
Haas, because there's Stuart Haas up in, Tony Stewart. His team is Stuart Haas. Yeah, they just got into F1. Might have been about 2018.
Yeah, because in the first season they said something like it's their second or third. It might have been their first season, but it was like one of their first seasons, and they got 5th place, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the standings when I was watching the race yesterday, and they haven't scored a single point this year, and they're in 10th place out of 10 teams.
Not good. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's
I
a
guess
lot
it's
to
not a good
invest
look.
in. When they've got all the money into how many drivers they have in NASCAR.
Yeah, and it's not Americans actually running the team. They're like chief or whatever is very much French.
Oh, okay.
But there's an American guy running the McLaren team, which is also interesting. Yeah, and lives in England.
Huh.
I don't know. It's a wild world. I don't understand really, but I like watching them race through cities. This weekend they were not in a city, which was a bummer. It was in Russia, and it was just like a normal track.
Oh yeah, that's the reason. Like the Monaco track is just so cool. And my son had gotten really into F1 for a while, and he's done like the the F1 racing, like with the wheel and the pedals,
The
and the whole
simulator,
and stuff like that. He can tell you all the spots to hit, like literally on the track, and
Are they racing on like when they race in a city? Do they repave it or something before the race week, or are they actually racing on like that city's roads?
Yeah, it's that city's roads, and they just to me it'd be crazy to go because you're going so fast you probably don't notice, but like the paint where if there's dots, like for the middle,
Yeah.
you're kind of crossing over that, and how they have all of the barriers and things like that. But yeah, no, there's no repaving.
Because the slightest bit of like they're so precise that like the slightest bit of contact can screw up an entire race. So I don't understand. Like I guess there's no holes in the pavement or anything, like no cracks in it or anything. Because I thought that would be so noticeable. But I guess if you're just going that fast, they just glide over the top of it, and it's not even an issue.
Yeah, they have downforce to a point, but yeah, there's some of that they can go over. But yeah, I mean, they just have to be prepared for what's out there. It's crazy.
Because that's like such a major part. Do Indy cars ever make contact, or is it like
it's not good if they
devastating if they do? Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's why it's fun to watch, like especially watching Elio Castroneves right now in that SRX series where these cars you can be bumping and banging and stuff like that, and especially on a couple of the dirt, but even on the pavements, he's actually getting to bump people. But yeah, I mean, literally, it's Indy cars and F1 is just such on the edge that you just can't.
It must be very similar because I was Googling some of the people. Like there's only 20 F1 drivers, so it's insanely competitive to get in that every year. And a lot of the guys, probably at least like 5 or 6 of the guys that are profiled in season 1 are like they're now in IndyCar.
Yeah. They do.
So I guess there's like F2, F3, F4, but also IndyCar. Like I guess IndyCar is better than F2. So like that's what you want to be doing. It's high profile.
There was Indy Lights for a while, and I think I'm not sure if that's still going actually. But yeah,
do they only race in America? IndyCar? Yeah.
Now they do. They used to go for a race like in Brazil, and then they went into Japan. But I think right now it's all here.
And they're not all tracks. They're not all on tracks. Or all of them are on tracks.
Yeah, they're all on track. It's just whether it's an oval or a road course. But yeah, now they do go in the cities, like at St. Pete. They're in a city there, and I think Belle Isle, Michigan.
I think the payment is is like a big difference too, because they like the individual driver makes money for winning the races, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think F1 drivers make money for winning a race. Because they make like 30 million, or the top guy makes 30 million in salary, and the second guy makes 25 million in salary, and like they all make $1 million at least in salary. So I think they just do it purely for the points, because you want to be the point winner at the end of the season. Like points, they get so pumped up for like a 4th place finish. Like if Haas got a 4th place finish, they are like ready to party. Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's the money that's coming in
for the teams
and distributed.
Yeah, because they're always bouncing around from team to team. It's wild. I watched the race on Sunday. There's guys racing for other teams that I was trying to keep up with from season 1 of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't think there are any American drivers.
A couple that I know. Well, we're in the intro, so
All right, Tim's back.
I'm good.
Good timing.
Bill's not.
Shocker.
Nothing shocking here. All right, you're up.
One of those days where your takes as a sports fan might say more about you than it does about the actual evidence presented. 8 commits in 8 days. The news from Gamecock football: busy recruiting weekend, 12 official visitors, and positive momentum for sure for Shane Beamer Company as far as the names now attached and some still question marks. I'm not one that follows the recruiting every single day and the ins and outs of it. I think that allows me, or I'd like to hope that allows me, to be able to get more of a hold on the big picture as opposed to the specific details and one guy skewing things. But Anthony Rose, the latest guy on Sunday, to recommit to the Gamecocks. He is a 4-star safety from down in Miami, had decommitted several weeks ago. And then, as the story goes, is he needed to get his grandfather on board. They made the visit, and that's happened. On Saturday, it was a guy who technically counts in the class of 2022, but will be on the field basically immediately for the Gamecocks in Kansas. Freshman All-American corner, Karan Prunty, making the decision, choosing the Gamecocks over Tennessee. And then on Friday, it was a couple of guys. And Shane Beamer, and if you follow his Twitter account, the welcome home tweets have been popping out. 8 in the last 8 days by my count. It was a wide receiver from Clarendon Hall here in the state of South Carolina early on Friday, right after our show, I believe it was, when Kylie Horton made the news or made the commitment to Shane Beamer. And then Kason Henry later on Friday, a big offensive lineman from Marietta, Georgia, who apparently is buddies with another Gamecock commit, Grayson Maines. And they're trying to basically recruit and do it via the social media. I've seen a big offensive lineman from the state of Pennsylvania who is a Penn State legacy, who Penn State is going after very hard, and Ryan Brubaker, but trying to get a good group of offensive linemen going as well. But plenty of movement. And so now the question is, all right, well, how do you see it? Are you optimistic and convinced Shane Beamer, and some of this movement especially, is proof that he's going to be the guy for South Carolina and can take the program where it needs to go and get it back to where it was the last time he was in town under Steve Spurrier? Are you bitter and jaded and seen good recruiting news before, seen 5-star guys commit to Will Muschamp over the last couple of years and saying, doesn't matter what happens in recruiting, I'll believe it when I see it? Or more than likely, you're somewhere in the middle between these two extremes right now and realize that it's a difficult job that Shane Beamer and company have in front of them. And it's going to take a lot of really good players to get South Carolina back to the positive side of a 500 record first. And then it's a matter of really getting difference makers to get the program anywhere close to where it was under Steve Spurrier in its heyday, finishing 11-2 in 3 straight years. I would say what I have seen in the last week plus, at least, is evidence, Bill, of the work and the vibe that we've heard of from Shane Beamer, but without actually seeing any kind of evidence. And again, a verbal commitment is unofficial and non-binding and the whole thing. So it's not hard, tangible evidence necessarily, but when you get a guy like Prunty to commit to you as a transfer, and he's going to be enrolled in school in the next few days or week or so, and will be eligible to play immediately. I'm the hard evidence kind of guy, and that is what that is. I think this was something that was absolutely necessary for Shane Beamer and his coaching staff to have positive momentum that, from their standpoint, can lay the foundation and build to bigger and brighter things. Other higher-rated prospects were on campus this past weekend, are saying good things about the program, haven't necessarily committed, but seems to be at least the opportunity to head in that direction. How do you see things?
Like you said, you have to continue to upgrade the talent level that you've got, and that is what's happening. And then you have to win football games, and then you got to upgrade what you started building. You know, you've got to take it one step at a time, and that's kind of the way. Look, if you want to use the example of Clemson, if you want to use what Dabo did, that's what they were able to do, one step at a time. Get one player in, win a few games, get another player in, win a few games, and build. Now, you don't have the upside is you don't have the easy schedule, or the downside is you don't have the easy schedule. I mean, Clemson, again, is having to go out of conference to play their marquee games. That's why they've got Georgia lined up. That's why they got LSU lined up. Those programs here over the next several years. But that's exactly how you go about doing it. South Carolina's not going to – one new head coach isn't going to show up and start landing a bunch of elite 4- and 5-star prospects. These are good players. They're guys that will still need to be developed. So you've got to have coaches on staff that know how to develop guys who can coach them up. You got to have a coordinator, 2 coordinators, offense and defense, that know how to scheme and play to the advantages of your recruits. And if you do that, then you've got a chance to move forward and improve the program. This year, there's got to be some sign of progress, getting to 5 or 6 wins. You really need to get to 6, get to a bowl game. You know, you go back, and Will Muschamp inherits a team that was 3-9, and they go 6-7 their first year, but they got to the bowl game, and everybody considered it a wild success and that he was moving the program forward. I would assume that would be the same thing. Even if you go 6-7, you get to a bowl game, doesn't really matter where it's at, Birmingham or who knows what. There are going to be people who consider it, well, there should be, I guess, people consider it a massive success given the Vegas over-under win total. That if you can find a way to get to 6 and go to some kind of random bowl game, that people would have to say, oh, man, that's a pretty doggone good job in year 1. And then you take that and you use it on the recruiting trail for the 2023 class. And that's how South Carolina's going to have to rebuild and get back to having a chance to win the eastern side of the conference here, with Georgia and Florida already kind of, well, Georgia light years ahead, but Florida ahead of you as well.
So several of you weighing in on this thing, and it's interesting to get perspectives for sure. Dr. Bulldog mentioned he just want to say hi to Gamecock Larry to begin with on the Cool Care Heating and Air Tech. Was talking or was commenting on something that you mentioned earlier. If a coach asks a prospect to delay their announcement, does that mean they still have to take phone calls and annoying stuff from fans, other coaches, recruiters, the whole deal? That seems to be a pretty big downside. And yeah, I guess that would be part of it. I'm pretty sure you can also shut off your phone and the whole thing. Did read an article on The Athletic over the weekend from Bruce Feldman, Elite 11 camp. Apparently there's one of the quarterbacks there doesn't have social media at all, only actually created a Twitter account just because his high school coaches were telling him that would be a way for college coaches to actually contact you. And some of the smaller schools, Cincinnati, I think probably the biggest school on this one kid, that had transferred from Colorado to Nashville, Tennessee, where Trent Dilfer was coaching specifically for football. An interesting kind of old school take on recruiting. And one of the reasons why he hasn't taken a bunch of visits to a bunch of schools all over the place is that he's so committed to his high school team, is how the story goes anyway. Just an interesting side note on that one. The Cocky Codger in on the Cool Care Heating and Air Tech. The bottom line is that for Will Muschamp, it was coach, prove you can. And for Shane Beamer, it's coach, prove you can't. Just my humble opinion, as always. What do you think, Bill? Do you think most Gamecock fans see it that way? Or is it not that cut and dry?
I actually kind of agree with that. People are willing to give Shane Beamer the benefit of the doubt because of, I think, the way he's kind of approached the job, the excitement, the energy he's shown, the fact that it feels like early on that it's more of his dream job than Will Muschamp, who was just here trying to rebuild his career and move on to the next big job or, whatever else would have been out there. Whereas Shane Beamer feels like a guy that even if he has success, isn't trying to look around and find another school to go running to. So I think there is that what he says about that, about proving you can't do it. I also think the fact that Will Muschamp had kind of shown he couldn't do it at Florida is why more people was like, all right, now you got to prove that you actually can do it at South Carolina. You couldn't get it done at Florida. We already have that. We know that. We've seen that. Now you got to prove you actually can do it. Whereas, again, the resume is completely blank for Shane.
What do you guys think about the one guy who committed over the weekend who will be eligible to play immediately, Karan Prunty, Kansas freshman All-American at corner? Chris says, how good is he really? I know he's an All-American freshman, but he's coming from Kansas. Remember, the last transfer we got from there didn't really pan out. I kind of disagree with that. I think he's talking about Johnson. Wouldn't you agree, Bill? Is the last guy that I know that transferred from Kansas to South Carolina as a grad transfer, ended up starting for Carolina and at least getting a shot in the NFL. Wasn't a tremendous one-year experiment, don't get me wrong, but got on the field. What do you think?
Well, there's two different ways to look at that. One, Isaiah Johnson was a one-year deal. And so that was essentially taking, a guy that's coming in and trying to plug a hole for 1 year, and then he's gone. You got to remember with Karan Prunty, you are essentially getting a freshman What you're getting, I don't know how with COVID and everything. I don't know how you word it right now, right? Like he played this year, so he's not a freshman, but because everybody got their freshman year back or got their year back, he's not actually a sophomore. He's considered a freshman again. So
I think it's going to go the opposite way. I think they're going to go by years already played. If you already played a year, you're now a sophomore, and then you'll get to your senior year and just basically be a super senior. I think if you want to play another year, I think that's how they're doing it.
However you want to word it, but take that into account too. That you're not counting on him for just this year. This is a guy. I mean, this is the equivalent of signing a high school recruit who now goes ahead and bumps up his time. Now that high school recruit has already played a year of college football, but you get him for 4 years or 3 years, 4, whatever, maybe 2. I don't know. Maybe he's so good he can go after 3 more. Who knows how good he ends up being? But I guess that's the other way you got to look at it. With the transfer portal, the mindset right now is, we're taking this guy for a 1 year. We're taking Tavian Feaster for one singular year. We took Isaiah Johnson for one singular year. I'm trying to think if anybody was JT eBay. I think came back for 2 years, right? Or was he a 1 year? I forget.
Stephen Bonsack was a JUCO guy for a couple of years.
But well, it's not even a junior college guy. You've taken a transfer year who has all the time in the world, who has 4 years to play still. And so, maybe he doesn't help. Maybe you look at it, maybe you're 6 games into the year and he hasn't broken into the starting lineup. Well, you can't say, he's a bust now.
I would be shocked.
But to his point, All-American's All-American. Like, we're not talking about an FCS freshman All-American like EJ Jenkins was. Like, that's a difference. He's a FBS freshman All-America. I'm looking at the list on 24/7 Sports. He's amongst I think 3 other SEC guys: Eli Ricks from LSU, who had that pick 6 against South Carolina; Malachi Moore, who started as a freshman for Alabama; Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech; and Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. Like, it's one thing if we said, this is a big deal because he started at Kansas as a freshman. We're not talking about him starting. Like, he actually performed. He had 26 tackles, 9 pass breakups, and a pick. Like, that's actual performance on the field at the FBS level. It's not the same thing as saying he's a Division II All-American. Like, All-America is All-America. The kid can play.
Okay.
You're just not willing to go that far just because it's Kansas, Bill, or
no. That's fine. I'm just going to be a little skeptical or for any transfer. I really like Debo Williams. I really
that
like
guy hadn't played in college.
I really like.
There's a massive difference.
But Tim, we're talking about transfers. You're talking about taking.
Yeah, we're talking about proven. We're talking about people that have proven it on this level. SEC is different, but he did.
But now he's got to come in and prove it again.
Yeah,
and until he does that,
nobody's saying that he's that. It's just there's more reason to be. We're talking about confidence levels right now, and the confidence level for him is going to be higher than anybody else because he's the only one that's actually done it at the FBS level.
Out of who?
I mean,
Tyrese Ross has.
Well, he didn't do anything.
Not at a freshman All-American level. Is all.
They didn't do anything.
And freshman All-American can be skewed because there are positions that don't have a bunch of freshmen at them, right?
Well, all I'm trying to do is say with Prunty, you hope that he comes in and is able to be what you guys are billing him to be. I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical about that until I see it happen. He's still got to come in and win the job. And this is where I don't like, because he has so much time. It would be different if he was a 1-year guy, right? It'd be different if he was a 1-year guy. But because he's got so much time, I don't feel like the pressure is on for him to come in and be the immediate starter, to win the job right off the bat, for him to be the sole guy who changes the defense, because he has time to develop. And if he doesn't necessarily live up to what you guys are building him up to be this year, it doesn't make him a bust.
What is anybody building him up to be?
We're just saying that he was a freshman All-American, man. That's just a fact. We're not.
The question was basically, how good is he really? I know he's a freshman All-American, but he's from Kansas. My only point is, freshman All-America is freshman All-America. It doesn't matter where you came from. If you're an FBS All-American, you're an FBS All-American. Like, he played in the Power 5.
Bill, to your point, who's the last corner that developed into a good player for Carolina? Is it Keyshawn Nixon maybe is a guy that didn't come in and play a bunch early on? Because typically, I mean, I'll never forget Steve Spurrier. Yeah, Stephon Gilmore, we had to wait 2 practices to name him a starter because we just didn't want to tick off everybody who was returning. At 18 years old, it was obvious that he was a guy. I mean, typically corners, more than any other position, I think, maybe running back, come in and they have the physical ability to play or they don't. And it's not a big developmental position compared to other ones. I feel like on the SEC level, especially, either you can play, either you have that quick switch to cover or you don't. And to me, Prunty has proven that he does. I mean, the Big 12 throws it more than the SEC, I think, on average. So he had plenty of opportunities to give up a touchdown, didn't do it on 525 snaps. Now, if you're telling me that the rest of his secondary was that good and was able to make up for his deficiencies, that doesn't make any sense to me at Kansas. So I think this one by far is the biggest signing, the biggest news for Gamecock football and Shane Beamer that we've seen. And we'll see, but because of the deficiencies at that position and also because you need guys immediately to come in and play. So there is no patience for the defensive secondary right now in that Gamecock football program. You got to have guys to step up and play, man.
I don't know. I'm laughing at the texters. Ray out of Bowman says that I always have the garnet glasses on. George says only I could try to spin Carolina landing a freshman All-American into less than a good thing. So you got Ray down in Bowman who's convinced that I'm a homer, and you got George saying that I'm spinning it. Look, all I'm saying is South Carolina, he's going to be in the same boat. Karan Prunty is going to be in the same boat with all those other guys. You know, Cam Smith was a highly thought of recruit. And Tim, it's interesting.
High school All-American.
High school, exactly. Yeah, high school. And all I'm saying on this is like the secondary. I have questions about the entire secondary. And you are right. Bringing in a guy with his credentials on paper looks good. Now just go out and let's see what it looks like with what I like the most about this, with a coach that has a track record. A coach that actually has a track record of being able to develop guys. That's what I like now. And you're giving him, at least on paper, some guys that have some experience and some ability there in Prunty, and I'll throw Cam Smith in there. And let's see what happens with what the secondary looks like early on. That's where I'm interested to see. Can he come in and earn a starting spot? I mean, let me ask both of you guys, because I think the answer is yes from both of you guys. You two both expect Karan Prunty to be the starter from day one.
Probably a starter, yeah. But I mean, I feel like you're framing this like we're not anointing him like Stephon Gilmore. It's just you had 8 commitments over the weekend. He's the most meaningful. That is my position, because he's actually proven that he can play at this level. Nobody else has. When you're comparing him to a bunch of 3-stars, so I don't think he's going to be J.C. Horn being the best player on the secondary right away. But yeah, I think he'll probably start. Yeah.
And a 4-star safety there, Anthony H on the YouTube live stream says it's official. Muschamp is broken bill. I think there's an element of that for sure. What's gone down in the last few years for the South Carolina football program is not just Bill dealing with that for sure. 803-404-6100 is the number into the show. Talking a lot of Gamecock football, College World Series as well. The NC State, I don't even know how to put it, situation, disqualification, I guess is the official way to put it, means that it's now Vandy and Mississippi State tonight in the College World Series Championship Series. Best of 3 begins tonight. We'll have it for you on 107.5. The game starting at 6:45 tonight, tomorrow night, and Wednesday night if it comes to that. Just, I think everybody feels bad for NC State. I think the levels of how the NCAA, of how much blame the NCAA has, and then how much other blame you're throwing out there. See people on social media blaming the other 3 teams for not having the integrity to step away and say, no, we'll wait for NC State to get healthy and the whole thing. And that's what they should have done. I know a lot of Vandy hate out there just kind of naturally for all the success they've had recently and being the beneficiary here. But definitely puts a damper on what's been an amazing College World Series from an on-the-field standpoint. And we got to see another amazing game Saturday night. Mississippi State walks it off against Texas, makes it an all-SEC College World Series final. We'll continue to discuss that. Epic's sudden death playoff battle on the golf course yesterday, the PGA Tour up in the Hartford Open, was fantastic to watch as well. Harris English and Kramer Hickok. The second one, I never even heard of Kramer Hickok before. A young guy with Jordan Spieth comparisons and goes back, played at Texas, and goes back a long ways with Spieth. 8-hole playoff is fun to watch if you don't like golf, and certainly notable from yesterday as well. Love to hear from you and see where you side on the Gamecock football discussion and NC State especially. It's the early game here, rolling in hour number 3 on 107.5 The Game.
Did you know a great night of sleep can actually affect your mood? It can put you in a great night of sleep can put you in a positive mood. And contrary to what some of you might think, or some of you might not think, I am in a positive mood. Very positive this morning, mainly because I got a fantastic night of sleep with my Sleep Number bed. Put the Sleep Number setting on 45, have woke up rested, refreshed. I'm ready to go. Not necessarily agreeing with Tim and Patrick this morning, but I am still fired up, ready to go, ready to start a brand new week, all because of a Sleep Number bed. You need to go ahead and check out a Sleep Number bed for yourself. Again, I put that Sleep Number setting on 45. Feels great, get a great night of sleep, and here I am handling my coworkers as well as I can each and every morning. Do the same. Discover proven quality sleep during our lowest prices of the season. All Sleep Number 360 smart beds are on sale starting at $899 plus free premium delivery and setup when you add a base. But this ends today, so stop what you're doing. Don't even go into work. Just go visit a Sleep Number store. 2 to choose from. One in Irmo, Harbison Boulevard across from Buffalo Wild Wings. The other in Columbia, Two Notch Road across from Sand Hills Mall. You can visit them on the web, I guess, if you got to go to your office. SleepNumber.com. Again, lowest prices of the season. All Sleep Number 360 smart beds on sale starting at $899 plus free premium delivery and setup when you add a base. But it ends today. Make the switch to Sleep Number today and find out what a great night of sleep is truly like. Oh, Wesley Bryan's in. Got to go to the grocery store today. I had to borrow some Fruity Pebbles coffee creamer to go with the coffee, and it is, well, it's not as good as Fruity Pebbles with milk, I can tell you that. Could really go for some, may have to do some cereal after this. I didn't know, Alan, I didn't catch when you say, did you catch any of I saw the boats out, but I mean, I wasn't joining in on that one, but I heard about it and saw some of the boats going up and down the lake. We went out for a little while Saturday afternoon after we got back from the Eudora Farms, which again was just an experience. So they put us in a trailer, like a big trailer. They had the kids in another trailer, and like 2 cars behind us was like a little Honda Accord or something. I just kept waiting for one of the giraffes just to step right in the sunroof or something. That was an interesting experience. Tim, your kids would love it. I mean, they give you the stuff it's just borrow somebody's car before you go down there.
What kind of sales pitch is that? Hey, this is to a near safari. Can I borrow your car?
That or offered it. I still don't get it too because you're driving through it. It's just, it's big and they've got it. It was cool. They had llamas and alpacas and all kinds of stuff. I mean, they didn't have anything like, it wasn't like a tiger or a lion roaming around out there or anything. Nothing that I think was going to eat you.
That's a good thing.
I wouldn't think so.
Trey had asked earlier if I was familiar with Lamborghini tractors. A little bit. I thought that they were more. They're overseas, and I thought they were more like for vineyards and stuff. But I don't know, like smaller farming. I don't really think they're over here, but I had heard of them. Very little.
I had no idea that Lamborghini made tractors and started as a tractor company. And that's what we got into last week. Somebody mentioned that while Patrick was talking about his tractor or riding lawnmower.
Well, now there is a difference between a riding mower and a garden tractor.
Well, that's what I said. I said that there was a difference between a riding lawnmower and a tractor.
That it's the deck, the mower deck. I think it's farther up on the riding mower, where the garden tractor is more centered.
Well, they were saying that you can't call it a tractor at all. But then we also got sent pictures of like listings on like John Deere's website that called them tractors.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no reason for it to have been brought up, but several people were like, "Wow, Patrick really doesn't know what a tractor was." I was like, "Dude,
yeah, right.
We just call it a tractor. Relax."
I remember having a conversation similar to this several years ago. My brother-in-law worked for a dealership, a John Deere dealership, for like 40 years. So we were kind of talking a little bit about some distinctions and whatever. But a lot of them, I think, are just called garden tractors.
Chris, that sounds like the guy who just started making those boats, the Barletta, where he basically. Have y'all ever heard of a Barletta pontoon?
Mm-mm.
They're $100,000 pontoons. They're only about 3 or 4 years old. They're expensive. The only reason I know about them is because we went to the boat show last year, and I saw them, and the guy was telling me about it. So it was a guy who made RVs. He made all his money, designing and making RVs. So he's a pretty rich guy. Wanted to get a real nice pontoon for his family, and basically went around to all the pontoons. Couldn't find one he liked. He's like, I can build one better than this.
Oh.
So just started building pontoons. Barletta, they're real nice.
Wow, that's crazy, Chris.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't know the Lamborghini started as tractor people. Wow.
Jen, we got an email from the hot.
Yeah. We can knock that out at the end, I guess.
Is it another sleep number?
Yeah, Spot.
The same one? Oh. So smart.
Okay, guys, we're up.
At Tim Hill 1075, where E-Chave hits me up, says, to me, this year's championship is now invalidated. Talking about the College World Series. I will no longer be watching. That's awfully harsh. And I feel like that's kind of the take, Bill, that we get sometimes. Like, I am no longer listening on the text line, and then we'll get a text. Still bitter text, but clearly go.
We'll get them 10 minutes later. Changing the dial right now, and then 10 minutes later. Can't believe you're still talking about this.
I get the emotion involved in this thing, man, and being really ticked off about it. And it, again, absolutely brutal. Can't imagine Raleigh Sports Talk this morning. Just the NCAA talked about being a 4-letter word. And again, if you haven't been privy to the details, they're not necessarily crystal clear. I don't think they ever will be because of HIPAA issues that you're not getting names associated, but at least the D1 baseball account from Kendall Rogers does put numbers on this thing. It says originally it was 1 positive test, and then I think the roommate also tested positive. And then after the game on Friday for NC State, where they only had 13 players available, and I think as I read this, I'm pretty sure it was all the unvaccinated players who they ruled ineligible for this thing. So basically half the team was vaccinated, half the team wasn't. And once the one positive test came out, I think they said, you unvaccinated guys, we have to test you and you can't play today. And they gave NC State the choice that day to either forfeit the game or play with that basically half of their roster. And NC State came back and said, hey, why don't we press the pause button, wait for these tests to come back and play a doubleheader tomorrow? And the NCAA said no. And to me, that's the first part of this that I have a problem with from the NCAA standpoint. Again, it's a tough position they were in, no doubt. And I get it. Mac hit me up with a long email talking about how the NCAA has not modified its protocols as science and more evidence has come in the last couple of weeks. And I don't want to get into a whole scientific, political / discussion on this. I get it all. It's all part of it. And I understand why you have those opinions, but it's certainly not something that I feel comfortable being an expert on this morning. I'm just coming at it from I love the College World Series. I've been there 5 times. I think it's one of the best sporting events out there, if not the best. And this NC State story, their run, starting 1-8 in ACC play this year, and then knocking off just big-time pitcher after big-time pitcher and program, and for it to end like this, I guess it kind of sums up the last 15, 16 months in a lot of ways for us. And Bill, my big takeaway is I'm just happy it hadn't happened more. It's terrible that it happened to NC State, but it's not going to keep me from watching tonight, tomorrow night, and maybe Wednesday night. And there will be an asterisk, no doubt, if Vandy ends up winning this thing. And I guess you could even say if Mississippi State does. But I think we've had an asterisk to some degree on all of our lives, not just what's happening in sports lately. But, I mean, I'm sitting in my garage right now. You're sitting at home. Patrick's sitting at home, and Jen's the only one in the Herndon Chevrolet studios. So let's not pretend like it hasn't affected all of our lives in a major way in the last year and a half almost.
Let me ask you this. Should have Vanderbilt had a say in what they would allow or not? Like if Vanderbilt agreed to it, if the NCAA goes to Vanderbilt and says, look, here's the deal. They're not going to be able to play today. They want to play a doubleheader on Saturday. You got to beat them twice. Should Vanderbilt have had a say, somewhat of a say in the situation, or is it entirely between North Carolina State and the NCAA?
I think it has to stay within that realm. And if you go to the other team, I mean, no, I think that is, to me, an unprofessional way to handle it, right? Because then are you saying like, that's too much involved, right? That's when you blur the lines. And then what's the whole point of the NCAA and having a representative there and the whole deal? No, that's where they have to handle it.
It's not. Look, NC State had to win 2 games.
No, Bill, they were in the winners
bracket. Vanderbilt had to win. Vanderbilt had to win 2 games. It's not Vanderbilt's fault, I don't think. I don't think they ran over there and snuck into the hotel and did anything nefarious. But it's not Vanderbilt's fault that this has happened. And Travis hits us up on the live stream. And this is kind of where I'm wondering about this. If I'm Vanderbilt, I say, no, we're not doing a doubleheader.
That's why you don't get asked.
Right. That's why you can't leave it up to them if you're the NCAA. That puts them in an impossible situation, right? You can't, hey, can you guys be good guys and play a doubleheader? No, the NCAA has to.
I don't know. Do you go to them even though you know the answer? Do you go to them and say, hey, you guys willing to do it?
You tell them. You govern them. You tell them this is what you're doing.
But that's unfair to them. If I'm
unfair to NC State, it's gonna be unfair to somebody. NC State just got kicked out and they didn't even lose a game with a full roster.
I mean, Patrick, at some point they've got to look. You're right. It's not fair. Life's not fair. But the bottom line is Vanderbilt doesn't have the COVID problems. Here's where I'm going with this, because I can argue for NC State all day long like this, and I started the show doing it, saying, why can't you push the days back? And to be honest, if you're Vanderbilt, I don't know how early you would have thrown Kumar Rocker. What did he do Friday? So could
Monday.
Could he
Tuesday.
come back on Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Like
but probably not.
If you pushed back, if you said, hey, all right, we're going to give you the weekend to get this. If you tell NC State, like maybe Vanderbilt's okay with that because they go lighter on Monday, Rocker again on Tuesday, but then that also puts them back going into the College World Series. I don't know. There's a lot of parts to it where it's easy for me to sit here and say with NC State, yes, the NCAA should have treated them fairly. They should have done this or should have done that. And that's why I ask you guys, does this come into where you go to Vanderbilt and say, all right, what are you willing to do? And you know what?
No.
They're probably going to say nothing. But that's also, now we're being unfair to Vanderbilt. And I would make the case, I could sit here today, if Vanderbilt had to play a doubleheader and win both games, that was wildly unfair.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. And then it affects the other team that you're playing in the finals as well. What about Mississippi State? Because if you delay this thing a couple more days and you allow other guys to get rested, then it's not fair either. That's why I say I don't know what else could have been done. I just wish something could have been done to avoid this.
What were the rules at the beginning? Did they lay all this out as far as how things would happen if your team's tested positive and all of that? I mean, was all that very clearly spelled out? Because if they followed that letter of the law.
I think so. But it's the communication between the NCAA and State during this process that NC State has an issue with as we sit here this morning. That's my takeaway from the D1Baseball.com recounting of this from Kendall Rogers going through. And as I read it, it was one guy testing positive originally, and that caused the pause on Friday. And the NCAA ultimately to say, hey, all these unvaccinated guys can't play today. And then they had the choice to either forfeit or play that day. And NC State's request to play a doubleheader was denied. And then after that game, it was the roommate of the original positive test, I think, tested positive, and two more people, which caused it to be an outbreak, quote, and then they had to test the whole team. And then there were 4 more positive tests, ultimately 8 within the traveling party of NC State, which is why they had to disqualify. Brutal situation, man. And I get it if you're out there saying it's outdoor sport, and then the most tone-deaf thing of all was the NCAA also tweeting out over the weekend the attendance, the capacity, the crowd numbers from that night game on Saturday of more than 20-some thousand. And then the ultimate irony is, like, some of the NC State players just could have been in the crowd, right? They could have gone and watched the game. You're allowing people there, but you're not allowing them on the field. Now, the difference is that it's your job to make sure you're protecting players. And fans can buy a ticket or they can't, or not, right? It's a completely voluntary thing for a fan to buy a ticket and go to a game. It is not a voluntary thing if you're playing against a guy who could get you sick, theoretically. I think that's the distinction. It's a mess, man, and it stinks, and I get it. If you will see whoever wins the College World Series with a big asterisk. And I think that's the only fair way to look at it. It's been the quintessential story in sports, I think, of the last 6 months. But let's not also forget NC State baseball is not the first team to have this happen. We saw it with VCU basketball in the NCAA men's tournament. A couple of hockey teams during their tournament also got their season ended like this. And then just ask Dawn Staley and her players going into the NCAA tournament that got canceled more than a year ago as the #1 overall seed. Never had a chance to play a single game for an NCAA championship, man. It stinks all the way around. And Bill, I guess then the best takeaway is what you said, man. It's just not fair. And it stinks, but I don't think there was a way to make it fair for NC State. Certainly the NCAA couldn't figure one out in this process. And it is just all the way around unfortunate, I think, for those of us who watch and love college baseball, and then obviously for NC State players, coaches, and everything. They poured into it to get so close and then to have it taken away because of off-the-field issues. 803-404-6100. If you have a final word in the show, would love to hear from you. 8 commits in the last 8 days for Gamecock football, and NC State disqualified from the College World Series, our main topics of the day here on the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
It's a new year. Hungry, driven.
Zero as here. clearly it's been a year unlike any other. Can you believe it? The 4th of July is almost here, too. We're creeping into the final days of June, so almost half the year is done. If you're looking around your house and knowing that it's been an incredibly challenging year and a half or so, and your house is showing the wear and tear of it, you might want to get the pros out to help you. That's what I've done at my house. Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Done a great job cleaning my carpets and area rug for me, freshened up the tiles in the kitchen and the bathroom, really got my house back to feeling and looking its best, its freshest, its cleanest. And what was really most impressive to me about Zero Res is that they do it differently than anybody else. There is a patented powered water system that they use. They crank up the pH in the water. You can find out all the details, ZeroResColumbia.com. What I really needed to know is there are no harsh chemicals involved in the process, so nothing for me to worry about when it comes to my kids being on the carpets, and then my 1+-year-old picking up stuff inevitably off the floor and testing it out with his by eating it. You know how those kids are. Also, no leftover soapy residue. So my carpets stay cleaner longer. Yours can as well. 3 rooms, carpet cleaned, only $119 plus a free hallway. When you mention me, Tim Hill, give them a call, 803-262-4020, ZeroResColumbia.com. You can book your appointment today. That's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. You guys watch any basketball last night? Trae Young twisting his ankle was weird.
I did
Stepped on
not.
a ref, yeah.
I had to watch it a couple of times, even as they showed the replay, because I wasn't watching the ref.
Yeah. I don't know how bad it is. I mean, he didn't go back in.
No, he did go back
He
in.
did go back in?
Yeah, and he hit 1 3, but he clearly just
Wasn't the same.
that fearless. I'll always use that word that you mentioned, talking about chaotic energy that he plays with.
Yeah.
He didn't have that. And for him especially, it made a massive difference.
Chris Middleton was money in the fourth quarter.
Oh, he was more than money.
Yeah.
He was unconscious, man. 20, I think he had
20
in the fourth.
Outscored the Hawks, yeah. Which is good because he was horrendous in their first game.
Yeah. What was he in the fourth quarter? 0 for 9?
0 for 9 on the game for 3 the other night.
You know, I don't know whether I love it, but I don't know how it is for the players. But I mean, y'all realize the NHL Stanley Cup starts tonight? First, I guess they had Patrick? They did have the weekend off. I would say this for the Stanley Cup, they have absolutely moved along at a fast pace, like every other night.
True. It's the hardest trophy to win.
Like, like it feels like the NBA. I guess the NBA's been doing about every other night though too, haven't they?
Yeah.
Just a couple years ago, it felt like the NBA though. It was like you play one game and then you wouldn't play game 2 until like 6 days later.
Well, NHL series also go longer because there's more parity. Those first series in the NBA are basically always 4-1s, and they kind of roll by. An 8 seed's never beaten the 1 seed, right? That's never happened
In the NBA?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Nuggets with Mutombo beat the Spurs.
It has happened. I thought I remembered hearing that it was like a 16-1 thing in the NCAA.
Nah, I remember that.
Was it the Spurs?
Team. Huh?
It was the Spurs back in the day? David Robinson?
Did I say the Spurs?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Sonics. The Sonics beat the Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah.
There was a documentary on. I watched a little bit. It's called it's about Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and they're both being interviewed. Sean Kemp actually looks better than I guess whatever I anticipated him to look like, but they talk about how they would get into arguments and be cussing each other out, running down the floor, and players on the other team would be like, "What in the world's going on with these two guys?" He's got something in there. He's like, Nick Van Exel came up to him and was like, dude, like, how much do you hate your teammate? Like,
that classic take of liking each other's teammates is the most overrated thing in sports.
Well, it was more of they just both of them talked so much trash that Gary Payton was like, sometimes I just forgot who I was talking trash to.
That's the problem I have.
Yeah. Well, I hate to ask DC, what is B City? Because I'm going to assume that if it's a bunch of B's, that's not going to
like
be what I'm
I think it's
into.
B movie, isn't it? No.
He said no, it's on the line. He said B City. I'm assuming that is a colony of bees.
Come on, it's in Cottonville. Everybody knows that.
It's got a lot of buzz.
Got a lot of buzz. That was good, Jen.
You're welcome.
Exactly, Travis. He is an example of kids who don't attend camps and go undiscovered. But I think that happens less and less, man. You can test a kid, in high school and put out some numbers and then throw up a video. Find somebody.
I thought 8-man football was a new thing, but I found.
Oh no, it's old. Yeah.
You know that Rashawn Salam played 8-man football.
Really?
You got another name too?
I got a couple names: Chad Greenway, the linebacker; Tariq Cohen for the Bears; Leighton Vander Esch for the Cowboys; and Josh Brown was a kicker in 8-man football.
I think it's ripped.
Travis, Facebook Live. The kid from Clarendon Hall intrigues me since I played and coached in Skeeza, but him being an under the radar kid, is that an example of kids who don't attend camps and go undiscovered? I would say more than that, Travis, it's an example of part of this dead period that has happened in the last year and a half-ish, that college programs haven't been able to host camps, so they haven't been able to see guys in person, and coaching staffs, especially the previous South Carolina one, have used that so much as a recruiting tool or an evaluation tool. It has altered things tremendously, Bill. And this example, he's talking about what happened on Friday, or one of the 8 commitments for the Gamecocks here in the last 8 days, it being an unlikely one, being the wide receiver Kyla Horton from Clarendon Hall at 6'4", 180, but plays 8-man football for Clarendon Hall, and is a no-star guy as far as I've seen, or a yet-to-be evaluated guy, just because there haven't been these camps and there haven't been as many evaluation opportunities as usual, right, Bill?
Correct. Yeah, the recruiting industry will catch up with everything. I think with if you want to get into the ratings and the stars, guys will move up, guys will move down. I don't put too much stock into guys' ratings right now, because if you're into that, I think what wasn't it on this program? Didn't we do last week something like the coaches take recruits just based on stars? You're like, no, I'm sure 1 or 2 will sometimes go out of their way to take a highly thought of star player, but usually those guys are matching the hype. But the recruiting guys, and the ones that I always worked with and that enjoyed talking with, they were smart evaluators, but you still got to be able to see kids. And last year you couldn't see kids going to high school games. If somebody didn't have a high school game, it was weird. I think North Carolina had the state of North Carolina had the weird spring football high school schedule. There are guys I think that we're going to look back on in 3 or 4 years that go to the NFL draft out of this particular recruiting class. And it's going to be one of those narratives on like draft night of like, oh, he was a 2-star player that nobody knew about. And man, what a great story that is. And you're like, well, no, he was actually a really good player. He just, for a year, the main year of your evaluation, when you would have gone to camps or anything, you couldn't go. So kids are showing up now at camps and nobody's ever heard of him. They're like, oh my goodness, look at where did this kid come from? Well, he's been sitting over there. He just didn't get a chance to do anything for a year. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. In the recruiting industry, again, will catch up. They will catch up. You're going to have all these camps, although you're not doing. I don't think they're doing the opening again this year out in Oregon or wherever they were doing that. I think they moved it to Jerry World a couple years ago. Some of the big rivals stuff, they're not doing it. But the bottom line is it'll all kind of catch up. And by the time we get to signing day, people will have a better idea of who these guys are. But yeah, you're going to have that story in 3 or 4 years where kids who just didn't get seen get drafted in the top 10 or top 15, and you're going to have those people go, see, recruiting stars don't matter. He was a 2-star. He was a 3-star. And you look back and be like, well, yeah, that's because when he should have been evaluated, nobody knew who he was.
Now, Kylik Horton, a name that Gamecock fans know a lot more, being down at Clarendon Hall playing 8-man football. Gaines Adams is the example in the state of South Carolina, a high school 8-man football product, and obviously went on to star at Clemson and All-American and a high NFL draft pick. And Patrick, you picked up a couple of other national names on the radar of 8-man football in high school.
Yeah, I mean, currently in the NFL, two of the better players, Leighton Vander Esch and Tariq Cohen, played 8-man football. Heisman Trophy winner Rashawn Salam played 8-man football. Chad Greenwood is a great linebacker. And then Jack Pardee, who was an All-American at Texas A&M and coached in 5 different leagues, played 6-man football in high school.
And Bill, as far as you know, don't remember any 8-man football Gamecock signees from back in the day, right? Last several
Not
decades.
off the top of my head. There's nobody I can remember in the last 20 years, I believe.
15.
Just an example of Shane Beamer and his coaching staff doing a little bit differently. Positive momentum for sure. 8 commitments in 8 days. Appreciate you talking about it with us this morning. Who knows what tomorrow's show will bring. Dan Patrick Show coming up next here on 107.5 The Game. Alan, nobody knows that yet, man. That's a little too early for that process. That comes next. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you being a part of it. Thank you all you guys for the comments. Mark, same to you.
I agree. Power through the week that should be our motto.
Not this one from DC. Clearly sarcastic. Yeah. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning.